Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the Broccoli Fanfics, back with the amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Became the Spirit of Vengeance with the Help of Devil. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Today was not a good day for Izuku. Well, most days were not good days for Izuku, but this one was really bad. To start, his teacher had announced his desire to go to UA, which had the expected result, that is everyone but his sister laughing and Bakugo getting pissed. Then Bakugo told him, "Jump off the roof and hope you get born with a quirk in your next life," which was just a whole other level for him, which his sister was happy to yell at him while she used her quirk to throw him out a window. Luckily, Bakugo used his quirk to stop his fall, but as you can probably guess, she got in trouble and now Izuku had to walk home alone while she sat in after-school detention. Of course, nothing was ever easy for Izuku, and villain came and tried to suffocate him and steal his body. Fortunately, All Might came and dealt with the villain, and Izuku wasn't sure if he fainted from lack of air or from the sheer excitement of All Might being here. Things went even further downhill when Izuku took a ride on All Might's leg and learned that the symbol of peace was not as he seemed. After promising not to tell anyone, Izuku asked him something he had been wanting to ask him for years. "Can I be a hero, even though I'm quirkless?" No, this wasn't exactly what the hero said, but to Izuku it's all that mattered. All of All Might's attempts to soften the blow fell on deaf ears. After all Might left, he felt numb. All he ever wanted was to be a hero, to stop being so weak, to stop being a Deku. But now that already impossible dream had been crushed, and all he was left with a feeling of uselessness and depression. Mindlessly, he walked back to school to pick up his sister when his eyes caught sight of the roof. "Jump off the roof and hope you get born with a quirk in your next life." Bakugo's words came to mind, and the next thing he knew, he was on the roof looking down. At this point, all I am is a hindrance. Izuku got in trouble because of me. Mom won't have to work those extra hours to support 2 kids. Izuku, I'm sorry. Take care of Mom. And with that he fell. A few minutes later with Izuku. Izuku walked down the halls absolutely pissed. "I swear when I get my hands on Bakugo, I'm gonna snap his freaking neck," she muttered, walking down the halls. Izuku is probably already home. Better get there and make sure he's okay. Izuku walked out the main entrance and her heart dropped to her stomach. No, please no. Izuku. Right in front of the school was her brother, laying in a pool of his own blood. It was pretty evident what happened. Tears streamed down poor Izuku's face as she feels to her knees in front of her now dead brother. And so she did then the only thing she could do. She screamed. A week later, not many people came to Izuku's funeral. It was just his family and the Bakugos. Inko was a mess. She hadn't stopped crying since she received the news. Throughout the entire event, Izuku never stopped glaring at Bakugo, and when everyone else was distracted, she cornered him. "I could tell them about what you said," Izuku said emotionlessly. "Why didn't you?" Bakugo asked just as emotionlessly, the shock of being responsible for someone's death still sinking in. "Because that's not what Izuku would have wanted. Because he wanted you to be a hero. And even though you'll never be one, I'll let you pretend. Just know that I will be number one. Just so that way you can't be." Bakugo said nothing. "But I just want to make this clear. You killed my brother. I will never forgive you. I will never let you forget what you are. A goddamn murderer." Izuku was starting to lose her cool as tears slid down her face. Bakugo looked down and said nothing. Izuku glared at him before walking away, tears still in her eyes, leaving Bakugo by himself. Izuku opened his eyes and found himself floating in an endless black void. "Is this the afterlife?" "Well, yes and no," came a demonic voice. Izuku looked around in panic, but he found nothing. "Don't bother. I am not physically there, but rather I have pulled you into a space known as Purgatory, where we can speak." "Purgatory?" Izuku asked. "Yes, Purgatory. It is a place beyond heaven, hell, and the land of the living. Normally someone like you would simply go directly to heaven. However, I have an offer you may be interested in." "An offer? Wait, are you the devil?" Izuku asked. The voice let out a demonic laugh that shook the infinite space he was in. "Very good. Yes, I am the being you call the devil." Izuku was in shock. Thousands of questions ran through his head, but the one that repeated the most was, "What does the devil want with me?" "Like I said, I want to make you an offer." Izuku's eyes widened. "He can read my thoughts." "I'm the devil. Of course, I can read your thoughts." "Oh." Izuku felt dumb. "Anyway, I don't like to waste time, so I'll lay everything out for you. I can give you the power to be well, not a hero, but someone who saves people and fights bad guys. A vigilante." Izuku was intrigued despite himself. He had been told the same thing all other children were told about making deals with the devil, that it never ends well and that you'll always suffer in the end. But to Izuku, not being able to help people was already suffering. "Yes, don't worry, you'll be far too strong to catch. Even All Might would be unable to beat you. He would be stronger than All Might. Regardless, the power I offer is that of the spirit of vengeance, a fallen angel. You will receive great strength, speed, and endurance. Eating, sleeping, drinking will all be unnecessary. You will be able to summon the flames of hell and burn the souls of the guilty with your gaze. And lastly, every time innocent blood is spilled, you will know. With its power, you will be an unstable force of justice and you will save countless lives. All of this was music to Izuku's ears. He almost accepted right there and then. Except one thing came to mind. What will it cost? All I ask is that you send the souls of those who would bring harm upon the innocent directly to me. You want me to kill them. In hindsight, considering who he was talking to, this should have been obvious. But still, killing was something that heroes could only do under extreme circumstances. And it wasn't something Izuku ever wanted to do. A bit hesitant, huh? Well, perhaps you require some persuasion. Suddenly Izuku could see countless people suffering, screaming, die. And then it stopped. In a single moment, 34 people were just killed. 23 people were tortured. And that was just Japan. Tell me, Izuku Midoriya, will you just let them suffer when you could help? I accept. The devil laughed once more. Good, good. However, there is one more thing you must give up. I don't care. Izuku screamed, interrupting the devil. I can't let them suffer. I refuse ... to let them suffer. I won't be useless anymore. Take my soul. Take everything. Just give me the power. Give me the power to help people. A tear streamed down Izuku's face and fell into the void as the two were silent until the devil laughed once more. But it wasn't the amused laugh he let out before. This one was far more sinister. As you wish. Then Izuku saw a light. The light came closer and Izuku was able to make out what it was. A flame. The fire crashed into him and engulfed him. The graveyard a month after the funeral. The grave of Izuku Midoriya was alight as a pillar of flame burst from his coffin. A hand came up and grabbed onto the dirt surrounding him and Izuku Midoriya rose from his grave. He stood up and looked around him and his eyes landed on something that was distinctly out of place. A motorcycle, parked right next to his grave. On top of the motorcycle was a white shirt and green hoodie as well as a pair of jeans and cleats. Next to the bike was a chain. Izuku walked closer to it and a note appeared. Dear Izuku, the spirit of vengeance requires a mount, so I have given you one. Also, I doubt you wanted to walk around naked, so I provided some clothes. You're welcome. As for the chain, well, it was the weapon of choice for the previous Ghost Rider. I figured you could make use of it. Oh, and about the whole knowing about whenever the blood of the innocent is spilled, that only extends to whatever city you're in and will only be one at a time. Otherwise, you would go insane. Sincerely, the devil. The note burst into flames and disappears. Izuku quickly realized he was naked and changed into the clothes as quickly as possible. After he was dressed, he took a closer look at the motorcycle. It was small for a motorbike, as if it was made for him specifically, which, considering who made it, was probably the case. It was mostly black with some green highlights and looked like something a rich person would own. Okay, so ... how do I ride this? Izuku picked up the chain and slung it over his shoulder before sitting down on the bike. Strangely, it felt familiar, as if he had done it 1,000 times before. Did ... did these powers come with the knowledge to ride motorcycles? I mean, if it's required to be the spirit of vengeance, I guess it makes sense. Izuku sat on the bike and gripped the controls, getting the feel of things. Okay, what do I do now? He looked back at his burned grave and a thought came to his mind. I've been dead for a month. Oh God. Mom, Izuku. As soon as he realized this, he sped off towards his house. Speeding down the roads, Izuku didn't really care about abiding the road laws. Mom, Izuku, I'm sorry. I probably made you two worry so much. I swear, I'll make it up to you. Somehow, as Izuku came closer to his house, he saw something that made his heart drop. Flames. Izuku rocket towards his house, reaching in minutes. He threw his bike to the side and ran into the burning house, the flames not hurting him whatsoever. Mom, Izuku, is anyone here? He heard a coughing sound. Rushing to the noise, Izuku found a horrific sight. His mother, covered in burns, underneath a piece of burning roof. No, Mom. Izuku threw the piece of wood off her and lifted her up. He smashed the burning wall to bits and carried his mother outside. Setting her down, he took off his hoodie and used it to put out the flames. Once that was done, he crouched down. Mom, please, no, don't die. She coughed and opened her eyes. Izuku ... is that ... you? Yes, Mom, it's me. I came back. Where's Izuku? She ... was out, doing something. Izuku sighed in relief. No, his sister was okay. Mom, it's gonna be okay. Just save your breath. I'm gonna get you to a hospital. Izuku, Mom, please save your... Izuku ... is it really you? Inko asked, tears streaming down her burnt eyes. Yes, Mom, it's really me. A smile came to Inko's lips. I'm ... so glad. Izuku, I'm sorry. Those were the last words she said, before her body went limp. Mom, please. It was no use. Inko Midoriya was no more. Izuku screamed in rage and sadness as he hugged the body of his dead mother, begging her to come back. Then, as if it was whispered in his ears, a memory came to mind. Good, good. However, there is one more thing you must give up. I don't care. Izuku realized now what had just happened. This was all his fault. From all across the city could be heard a wail of pure rage. Meanwhile, in the Yakuza base, it's time, came the voice of Chisaki Kayaka, overhaul leader of the Yakuza. A little girl with pure white hair and horn, dressed in a simple hospital gown, looked up in fear but didn't run. Running only made it worse. His hand touched her, and her blood was spilled all across the wall. Back with Izuku, he felt it. Innocent blood had been spilled. All his rage, all his anger, burned inside of him as the flames encircled him, forming a cyclone of fire around him. When he emerged, instead of a green child, there stood a flaming skeleton. He picked up his hoodie and put it back on. The hoodie, along with the rest of his clothes, not catching fire. He called his bike, and as it came to him, it transformed, turning into a motorcycle made of bone, burnt metal, and fire. He hopped on, and at unparalleled speeds, he raced towards the source of the bloodshed. Now, with burning anger, Izuku Midoriya had become the spirit of vengeance and was headed to take his anger on whoever had the nerve to harm the innocent. And may God help whoever got in his way. The Yakuza, the group that was driven into becoming a shell of its former self by the rise of heroes, was now attempting to re-establish itself as a powerful force to be reckoned with. Unfortunately for them, there was something even older and even more powerful coming to re-establish itself by sending them all to pits of hell. Izuku crashed through the gates with full force, alarming the Yakuza who were charged with guarding the door. Izuku parked his bike and walked towards the startled Yakuza members. Who are you? What are you? Why are you here? Izuku said nothing as he let out a stream of green fire from his mouth, burning them all to the bone. Walking past their burning corpses, Izuku punched through the front door. The place looked like an ordinary house, and if you didn't know any better, you would think it was. However, Izuku knows that blood was spilled, and he knows where. Punching through the secret entrance, he was met with more Yakuza goons who were burnt to a crisp the second they showed their faces. Meanwhile, deeper in the base, Overhaul, we are under attack, yelled Chronostasis, or just Chrono. Though, by who? Asked Overhaul, still collecting Eri's blood. I don't know, but he's burning our men to ashes, Chrono said. Overhaul sighed. Another vigilante then. Fine, send the trio of garbage. Back with Izuku. Izuku walked through the base, burning whoever got in his was, until suddenly he felt his chain disappear. Looking for this, Izuku looked in front of him to see Toya Satsuno holding his chain. Next to him were Yu Hojo and Sorimitsu Tape. Together with their quirks larceny, crystallization, and food, they make some formidable foes. Or at least they would be if they were not literally fighting a fallen angel. I don't know where the fuck you came from, but you chose the wrong group to fuck with, Toya yelled. Yu sent out his crystals at Izuku to try and damage him, but they simply smashed into him and broke off without leaving a scratch. Impossible, Yu yelled. Tabe then took his turn and lunged at Izuku, intent on eating him alive. Izuku stood still as his teeth clenched around his bones, and did absolutely nothing. What? Yelled out the other two in shock. Tabe, still trying to eat Izuku, kept biting down on his arm until suddenly Izuku stuck his hand in his mouth and let out a blast of green flames. Tabe was reduced to ash in a second. The other two were in shock at how easily their friend was killed. Izuku turned to them and walked forward. Back with Overhaul. They're dead, Chrono said, looking disbelievingly at the cameras. What? Asked Overhaul, who up till now hadn't paid this matter any mind. They're dead. He killed them in seconds, Chrono reiterated. That bastard. He thinks he can fuck with us, Mimic yelled, giving Izuku the death stare from the monitor. Overhaul groaned. God damn it. Send the rest of the disposables, except for Shin, and Mimic get the trigger just in case. Back with Izuku. As Izuku walked deep into the base, he had a feeling he was being watched. He looked up to see another Yakuza, Deidoro Sakaki, drinking away. Hey, you are supposed to be Jiding Wazi, slurred the drunk. It appears he is immune or quirk. How bothersome, said a calm voice on the other side of the wall. Suddenly Izuku was flung through a wall as the Yakuza member Riki Akatsuki tackled him. In response, Izuku breathed fire on the huge man, causing him to throw Izuku off of him and into a wall. He yelled as the flames spread. Izuku got up, still not a scratch on him, and hurled a fireball at the man. However, it was blocked by some kind of invisible force field. Impressive, but not enough, said another Yakuza member, Hekeji Tengari. Standing beside him was another huge man named Kendo Rappa. Well, are you going to do something? Hekeji asked, looking at Rappa. No, ganging up 3-1 ain't right, Rappa said. Hekeji scoffed. Useless. I'll be sure to inform Overhaul when. Smash. The two men looked back at Izuku to see that he had broken through the force field with a single punch. What? Hekeji gasped. Rikia got back up and attempted to punch him, but Izuku caught the punch head-on, stopping it in its tracks. What? Rikia cried. You're literally just a pile of flaming bones. How are you so strong? Izuku didn't bother answering as he lifted the villain up by his fist and threw him around into the wall. Izuku grabbed his chain and ignited it before unfolding it. Then he in one fell swoop he slashed it across the villain's body, the hot metal cutting through his body like butter, bisecting him. Hekaji staggered back. Rappa, do something, you oaf. Rappa shrugged. "K." Rappa grabbed Hekaji by the head and threw him at Izuku's feet. "All yours." Rappa cheered. "Why you, traitor?" Hekaji yelled. "You'll get yours, Rappa, you'll." He didn't have the chance to say any more before he was consumed by flames. Finally, Rappa said, "A one-on-one fight to the death." The Goliath cracked his knuckles. "It's just me and you, Skeletor. Why don't you lose the chain so we can fight like men?" Izuku looked at his chain before deciding to drop it. Rappa smiled. "All right, let's get this party started." "Bruh." Rappa charged. Back with Overhaul. Overhaul turned away from the monitor. "All right, Mimic, you have a few seconds at best. Are you ready?" Overhaul asked. "I am ready to crush this ant." Mimic cried, his voice seemingly coming from the walls. Overhaul nodded. "Good. Chrono, go get her. We can't risk her getting out of our hands." Back with Izuku. Rappa lay in a pool of his own blood, burns lining his body. "You ... strong the light." Rappa painted. Izuku said nothing as he opened his jaw. Rappa laughed. "If this ... is how I go." "Good." Without another word, Izuku set his body alight. Izuku went to pick up his chain, and as he bent down, a bottle was smashed against his head. He looked up to see that Sakaki was hanging from the ceiling. "Come on, fight me, you ahhh." A fireball cut off his sentence as he fell to the ground, his body turning into a flaming pile of crumpled flesh. Izuku walked away, leaving one body and 3 piles of ash. On any other day, Izuku would have been horrified at such gruesome sights, but whether it be the natural apathy that comes from being the spirit of vengeance or the burning rage he still felt from seeing his mother die, he no longer cared. All that mattered was making them pay. Izuku walked down the empty halls of Yakuza base. All the Yakuza who had been here went up to try and stop him and had been incinerated. As Izuku walked further down the halls, he got the feeling of being watched once more. If you're going to attack, do it now. Then the halls closed in. The entire section of the base closed in and attempted to crush him. Mimic's laugh echoed. "H-h-h, that's right. Now prepare to die. You think you can look down on us, you piece of shit? The Yakuza will rise up once more and you will be a stain on our halls. Now die." The halls closed in even further, to the point where Mimic could no longer see Izuku. Mimic laughed even harder, until he saw a green light. What? Then the light grew brighter and brighter, and then he burned. Back with Overhaul. Boom. A large explosion shook the entire facility. "Was that Mimic?" asked Shin Nomoto, another member of Yakuza, which now consisted of 3 people. Chrono nodded, holding Yuri in his arms. "That probably means either Mimic killed him or I killed Mimic." The 3 looked back to see Izuku standing there, his clothes slightly torn. Shin wasted no time and used his quirk, Confession. "Who are you?" "I am the spirit of vengeance," Izuku said without meaning to. Must be his quirk. "Damn, it seems like my quirk doesn't work on him," Shin said, not knowing Izuku was telling the truth. "But let's see if he's so tough after ... this." The plague doctor lookalike pulled out a shotgun and fired a cluster of quirk-erasing bullets at Izuku. The quirk-easing bullets went right through his clothes and between his ribs, where they were quickly destroyed by the fire. The room was dead silent as the Yakuza realized that the person in front of them was actually a skeleton and immune to their bullets. "Well, it seems like you're going to be troublesome," Overhaul said, removing his gloves. "Chrono, get Eri away from here. I'll deal with him personally." Chrono nodded and tried to run out of the room, but Izuku was having none of it. Izuku summoned his bike, which appeared next to him in an instant and rocketed past Chrono, blocking his path. "What the hell?" Chrono shouted. Overhaul tissed and touched the ground. Suddenly the concrete floor beneath them disappeared, and in an instant, it turned into spikes that rammed themselves into Izuku. However, they didn't actually hurt him, as they all just broke the second they came into contact with Izuku. Izuku took out his chain and swept the room, destroying the rest of the spikes. However, Overhaul and his minions were nowhere to be found. It was no use, however, as he had spilled the blood of innocent. No matter where he went, Izuku could find him. However, something was off. For a few seconds, Overhaul would just disappear from Izuku's radar, only to reappear. Izuku looked down at the shotgun that the Yakuza used. They probably dropped it after seeing how useless it was against him. Bad move. Izuku picked up the weapon, and as he held it in his hand, the flames enveloped it and it was transformed. Now it was black and green and had skulls and flames painted across its cannon. New weapon in hand, Izuku went to kill Overhaul. He didn't have to go far, as suddenly the entire base began to shake. He felt the base move upwards as if it was being lifted out of the ground. Izuku summoned his bike and hopped on, rocketing out of the Yakuza's base in record time just as it was leaving the ground. Izuku burst out of the base and onto the streets and looked up, and in front of him was what could only be described as a monster. Overhaul's top half was now fused with some kind of bird-like monster made of flesh, metal, and concrete, and was the size of a skyscraper. His mask was fused with his face, and if you looked close enough you could see several other masks on the monstrosity. His quirk, it lets him take things apart and put them back together. Did he put the other Yakuza members back together and fuse them into his body? Until now Izuku had been running on rage too angry to even think properly, but the sight of this abomination brought him back to his senses. Overhaul looked down at Izuku and let out a monstrous scream. Rahhh. The monster shot a tendril the size of a building out from his body right at Izuku in an attempt to kill him right there and then. Thinking quickly, Izuku pulled out his new shotgun and fired it at the attack. Boom! The tendril was destroyed, sending bits of it falling to the ground, but just as quickly as it went, it grew back. He must be using his quirk to heal himself. How am I gonna beat him? Overhaul didn't give him the time to think as he sent 4 more tendrils at Izuku. Izuku ramped up his bike and dodged the attack and started circling Overhaul. Come on, think. Wait. When he turned the ground into spike, he had to touch the floor first. He must need to use his hands to use his quirk. If I can get rid of his hands, then he won't be able to regenerate. Izuku looked up at the enormous monster and at Overhaul's top half located at the very top. Now I just need to figure out how to get there. Another tendril came down to try and squash him, and Izuku got an idea. Izuku dodged the attack before taking his chain and wrapping it around the concrete tendril. Then he turned his bike around and pulled with all his might, throwing himself and his bike high into the air and landing on Overhaul. Perfect. It wouldn't be so easy though. The ground Izuku was riding on rose up and more tendrils surrounded him. Izuku took his chain and flared it in a circle, cutting down any tendrils that got in his way as he neared Overhaul's upper half. Suddenly Izuku was in the air, falling along with his bike as the part of Overhaul he was riding on disappeared. What? Izuku fell and another tendril came and smacked him down further into a crater. Overhaul sent more and more tendrils to pummel and crush Izuku into bone marrow. Before he could, another massive explosion destroyed all the tendrils, forcing Overhaul to have to regenerate. In the crater was Izuku holding up his shotgun. Small cracks had formed in his skull and his bike was on its side next to him. Climbing him isn't going to work. I need to find another way quick. A few more attacks like that and I'm done for. Izuku looked up at Overhaul and saw something above him. News helicopters. That's it. Izuku picked up his bike and sat back on. Overhaul, not wasting any more time, sent another tendril down to attack Izuku, which Izuku dodged before performing the same maneuver as last time, landing back on Overhaul. Overhaul makes that part of him disappear, but Izuku is ready this time and uses his flames to boost himself in the air before taking his chain and latching it to one of the news copters circling the two and pulls himself higher into the air. Overhaul sees this and tries to attack the helicopter with one of his tendrils, but Izuku shoots its base with his shotgun, causing it to collapse. Izuku rockets into the air past the helicopter high into the air. Overhaul panicked and sent a dozen tendrils at him all at once. Izuku used his chain and pulled himself down onto one of the tendrils, narrowly avoiding another one. Then he destroyed 2 more tendrils by slicing them with his chain and destroyed 3 oncoming ones with his gun. In a last-ditch effort, Overhaul formed an enormous bird head and swallowed Izuku whole. This didn't last, however, as a bright green light leaked from the head's mouth and cracks formed all over it until it exploded, leaving a cloud of green flames. And from that cloud came Izuku's chain as it wrapped around Overhaul's waist. And before Overhaul could react, his entire top half was ripped off and flung directly at Izuku. Overhaul and Izuku met in the middle of the sky. The last thing Overhaul heard was, "Burn." Izuku opened his jaw and released a massive torrent of emerald flame, reducing the leader of the Yakuza to ash in the wind. As the flames died down, Izuku let himself fall. He hit the ground with a thud, creating a smaller crater in the massive hole where the Yakuza base once was, and he looked up as Overhaul's monster body fell apart and came crashing down. Izuku's entire body hurt. This was so much worse than anything Bakugo had done to him. He wasn't sure if it was emotional exhaustion or physical exhaustion, but he really wanted to shut his eyes. Wait, what happened to the little girl? With Chrono and Eri, Kai had lost. He had lost and was dead, as was all of Yakuza now. All except him. He was here alone with Eri in a secret lab a few miles away from the base. It was just him. And it was all that thing's fault. Kai, I swear I will avenge you. He looked at Eri, walked up to the scared girl. First things first, I will need to create a new formula for taking quirks. One that will work on that thing, he said, taking off his hood, revealing his clock hand hair. Eri backed away slowly and closed her eyes as his hair extended and cut her arm, spilling her blood on his hair. Perfect. Now to get to work. Oh, and don't think of running away, you'll be slowed down for quite some time, so. Knock knock. Chrono turned his head towards the door. That's impossible. The only people who know of this location are Yakuza members, and they are all dead. Unless. The door burst open and Izuku walked in, terrifying the occupants of the room. How? Chrono yelled. How did you find me? Whenever the blood of the innocent is spilled, I will come. Chrono looked at Eri, realizing what he meant. Innocent? That girl is a monster. She. Izuku grabbed him by the throat, cutting him off. There are only two monsters here. You and me. And with that, the last of the Yakuza was turned to ash. Izuku turned his gaze to the terrified girl who was now freed of Chrono's quirk and quivering in fear in the corner. Izuku walked up to the girl and crouched down beside her. Eri closed her eyes again and waited for the pain. But it never came. Are you okay? Asked a gentle voice. Eri opened her eyes, and where the skeleton once was instead was a green-haired boy. His face was covered in cut and bruises, and the side of his head was bleeding pretty badly. His eyes looked tired but also contained something Eri had not seen before. Genuine concern. Eri didn't know what was going on, so she just nodded her head. Good. And with that, Izuku fell over and passed out. Izuku was back at his house sitting on his sofa. What? Izuku looked around and got up. He walked into the kitchen, and there he saw his mother, working away inside the kitchen like she never died. Mom. Izuku started running towards her, but before he could even make it 2 steps before he heard something. Fire. Izuku looked behind him and saw that his footsteps left a trail of green flames. No. It was then Izuku noticed her was not in his human form but rather his demonic one. More flames spread from his feet as they started to engulf the house. But Inko continued cooking like nothing was wrong. Mom, run. Izuku reached out to grab his mother, but the second he touched her she burst into flames. NOOO. Back in the real world. NOOO. Izuku awoke with a jolt, shifting into his demonic form. Izuku breathed heavily despite this form not needing air. He looked around and realized that it was just a nightmare. Except it wasn't really. His mother was still dead, and it was still his fault. Izuku shifted back into human form. Tears started rolling down his face as he began to cry. While killing the Yakuza had served as a good outlet for his rage, his sadness and guilt still remained. Mom, he whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. As he was crying, he heard a sniffling behind him. Izuku turned his head to see Eri with tears in her eyes as well. Oh right. I almost forgot the little girl. I have to be strong, at least for a little longer. Izuku took a deep breath and wiped his tears. Hello, he said nervously. The girl didn't say anything, instead choosing to just quiver in fear. I'm not going to hurt you, Izuku said gently. I came to save you. The girl looked at him confused. Why? I'm a monster. I don't deserve to be saved. Izuku remembered what Chrono said before he killed him. Those bastards. They tortured a little girl and called her the monster. Putting aside his anger, Izuku approached the little girl. You are not a monster, he told her. Her eyes widened as these were the first kind words she had ever received. But they said. Izuku cut her off. Those were bad people. They hurt and stole from and killed innocent people. Nothing they said about you was true. More tears spilled out as I couldn't understand why he was being so nice to her. But, no buts, Izuku said, cutting her off again. Do you know how I found you? Eri shook her head. No. I have ... an ability that lets me know when the blood of the innocent is spilled and where to find the person who did it, Izuku explained. Eri's eyes widened as she realized what this implied. Izuku smiled at her gently. If you were a monster, then I wouldn't have been able to find you. You are not a monster, Eri cried. She was so confused but at the same time slightly happy, which due to how rare happiness was for her confused her even more. Her horn started to extend and her body started glowing green. Izuku instinctively wrapped his arm around the girl to comfort her. Eri realized what was happening. If he touched her, he was going to disappear. Wait, she cried, but Izuku's arms had already made contact. And then Izuku transformed into his demonic form. Eri panicked, partly because she was touching him and thought he was going to disappear, and partly because his fire was touching her. But she quickly realized something was off. He wasn't disappearing, and his fire, which had just burnt Chrono to ash, instead felt warm and comforting. Izuku realized he transformed and had also freaked out a little, but he saw that his flames were not hurting her. I guess they only burn what I want them to. That must be why my clothes didn't catch fire. Seeing this, Izuku went all in and hugged her with everything he had as Eri for the first time felt a gentle touch. She cried. She wrapped her arms around his waist and cried into his chest. All her fears and pains she let loose in Izuku's comforting embrace as the two glowed green. After about half an hour, Eri started to calm down and the green glow faded. This caused Izuku to return to his human form. My curse, Eri sniffed. It didn't work. You're still here. Curse? Izuku asked. My quirk, Eri answered. Overhaul said it was a curse. A disease. Izuku clenched his teeth. Well, he is a lair. No quirk is a curse. Tell me, I never actually asked for your name. It's Eri, right? Eri nodded. Well, my name is Izuku Midoriya. Eri, what is your quirk? Eri looked at him fearfully. It's, Overhaul said, it rewinds people. I made Papa disappear. Eri started to cry again as Izuku was in shock. Rewinds people? What does that mean? Does it make them younger? She said she made her father disappear, so I guess so. That is a dangerous quirk ... But still, no one, let alone a little girl, deserves this. Izuku shook his head and tightened his embrace. Eri, did you do it on purpose? Izuku asked her. Eri looked up at him, fear still present in her eyes. And no, then it's not your fault, Izuku said, patting her on the head. What? Eri looked at him confused. Why didn't he hate her? She still couldn't understand. All children your age have problems controlling their quirks. It's not your fault, Eri. Eri looked at him like he had 10 heads and asked, why? This time it was Izuku's turn to be confused. Why what? Why are you being so nice to me? Eri cried. Izuku looked at her confused before putting on a kind smile. Because you deserve it. Eri didn't know how to respond. No one had ever been nice to her. At least no honestly. This person, he was so nice. Eri clung on to him, not letting go for dear life, in fear that this was all a dream and Overhaul was still alive and the boy would disappear. Izuku smiled at this adorable sight before realizing he should probably bring her home. Eri, I know you said your father was gone, but ... is your mother still around? He asked. Eri flinched. Mama ... didn't want me anymore. If Eri had any tears left, she would most likely still be crying. Which reminded Izuku he should probably get her something to drink. Alright then, Eri, I'm going to bring you to the police station where... No. Eri hugged him tighter and Izuku grunted in pain as Eri's horn was hurting his already bruised ribs. The police are bad. I saw Overhaul taking to them and he gives them a bunch of money. Izuku sighed. Great. Corrupt police. I'll have to deal with that later. Well, then I'll bring you to the heroes then. Eri hugged harder. They're being paid off too, aren't they? Eri nodded. Izuku groaned. Well, at least that explains why no one showed up when I was fighting Overhaul. Izuku wondered what to do next when Eri asked, Can I stay with you, please? She looked so unsure about asking that, but her eyes were so full of hope. Izuku sighed. He knew saying yes was a bad idea. He had no home, no money. He was dealing with his own issues and was probably really mentally unstable. He also knew that there was no way he would be able to say no. Of course, Izuku said. Eri's eyes widened. Really? Izuku smiled. Yes. Eri sunk her head into his chest and muttered 1,000 thank yous. Izuku's heart melted at this and he picked the girl up and held her in his arms. Let's see if I can find you something to eat. Turns out there was indeed food in the bunker lab. The whole place was the size of a small house and was located underground. It contained a small bedroom with one bed and a tea well as a kitchen of sorts that only had a refrigerator, a stove, a few pantries, and a sink, as well as one bathroom and a lab. The refrigerator and the pantries were stocked with all kinds of food and water. Most likely this place was meant so the Yakuza could perform tests undisturbed, but seeing as they were all dead now, Izuku figured this place would be his new house of sorts. Given how out of the way it was, it seemed like a perfect place for a murderous vigilante to live. He made him and Eri like 5 sandwiches each because they were both really hungry, and that was all Izuku had the energy to make. Izuku also found some medical supplies and used them to patch himself up as Eri watched. Izuku took Eri and put her down in the bed. Alright, I know you're tired, so just go to sleep. I'll be in the other room. You promise you'll be here when I wake up? She asked. Izuku gave her a smile. I promise. With that, Izuku turned off the lights and walked into the kitchen. He sat down. Now he could grieve. Izuku let the tears roll down his eyes as he picked up where he left off. Why are you crying? Izuku turned his head and Eri was standing there. Eri, what are you doing up? He asked. Eri looked down. I couldn't sleep. I was scared. Then I heard you crying. I'm sorry. No, Eri, it's okay. I did something bad, Eri. Izuku confessed, too emotionally spent to continue being strong. Bad? Eri asked. What could he have possibly done that was bad? To Eri, he was the nicest person on earth. I killed my mom. I did something I wasn't supposed to and ... she died. I'm a monster. Tears were now pouring down faster than he could wipe them away. Eri looked at him for a moment before asking, Did you do it on purpose? What? No, Izuku said, panicked. Then it's not your fault, Eri said, simply going up and hugging the crying boy. Izuku was confused for a second before releasing what just happened. You're like me, Eri said, looking up at him. So if you're a monster, then I'm a monster. Am I a monster? Eri looked at him, fearfully worried he would say yes. No, of course not, Izuku said instantly. Then you're not a monster, Eri said. Checkmate. Izuku couldn't believe he had just been out logic-ed by a girl who couldn't be any older than 7. Izuku did truly believe that Eri wasn't at fault for her father's death. But at the same time, he did believe he was responsible for his mother's death. Sure, there were differences in what happened and how, but in the end the result was that neither of them wanted to kill their parent but did by accident. Izuku was at a loss for thought, and so he laughed. He laughed at the fact little girl made him feel like such an idiot, and his tears of sadness turned into tears of laughter. Eri looked at him confused as to what was so funny. Izuku's laughter stopped and he looked down at Eri and smiled. Eri could tell this smile was much more real than the ones before. The pain in his eyes was still there, but it seemed like there was less of it than before. And for the first time, Eri felt proud. Izuku picked her up once more. Thank you, Eri. I feel much better now. Eri nodded and Izuku walked back to the bedroom and put her in bed once more. Izuku turned to leave, but Eri grabbed his shirt before he could. See, could I sleep with you, please? She asked fearfully. Izuku looked at her for a moment before nodding. Eri moved over and Izuku crawled into the bed. Immediately Eri nestled herself into his chest, holding on to him tight. Izuku noticed she still looked slightly afraid before realizing the problem. She's afraid of the dark. Without another thought, Izuku ignited himself. He didn't fully transform, he just made some small flames across his body, turning him into a human candle. Eri's fears eased as the girl slowly drifted off, and for the first time, a smile formed on her face. Izuku's heart melted once more and he felt something for the first time. Pride. He saved this girl. He is the reason she's smiling. A single tear went down his face as he pulled her close. Thank you, Eri. And so he drifted off to sleep. Izuku and All Might in his skinny form were walking to Izuku's house. All Might was carrying the exhausted girl on his back. Good thing she was light. All Might, Izuku said tiredly. You didn't have to carry me. You're right. I didn't have to carry you ... is what I would say if you didn't overexert yourself and collapse again. All Might replied, annoyed. Sorry, Izuku groaned. All Might sighed. I can't be too hard on her. After all, I acted the same way when I was her age. All Might, I really am sorry, but I have to be better. Izuku said, looked away from the number one hero. Young Midoriya, you are already strong. All Might reassured. With your telekinesis alone, you are a force to be reckoned with. And when you receive one for all, I have no doubt you'll be the top of your class. But I need to be more than that, Izuku said without missing a beat. I need to be the best. For Izuku, guilt. It was an emotion that All Might was familiar with, but never more so than now. You need to tell her what you said. All Might thought fearfully. His train of thought was derailed as a certain smell came to his nose. Smoke. All Might looked up and with his surprisingly good eyesight saw in the distance a fire coming from Izuku's house. All Might, Izuku said, wondering what was going on. Without another word, Almighty buffed up and rocketed away, stopping just in front of the girl home. Izuku saw her house covered in flames and looked on in horror. Mom, Izuku cried. All Might set Izuku down away from the fire and ran into the burning residence. Izuku tried to get up, but her limbs refused to listen, and instead all she could do was watch and cry. All Might searched through the house looking for the girl's mother when he saw a large hole in the wall. Walking through it, he found the unmoving body of Izuku Midoriya. No, please, she's been through enough. All Might crouched down and looked for any sign that the woman was still alive. He found none. He held his head down and mourned the women he never met. Izuku, I have failed you again. All Might picked up the woman's body and carried her away. Izuku, who could barely see through her tears, saw All Might's figure coming towards her. It was blurry, but it looked like he was holding someone. Mom, Izuku smiled as relief filled her. But as All Might came closer, she saw something that destroyed that relief. She wasn't moving. Out of desperation, Izuku used her quirk to force herself to her feet and ran towards the hero, ignoring the pain throughout her entire body. All Might, Izuku yelled, facing him. Is ... is she? All Might looked at her, tears dropping from his eyes. I'm sorry. Izuku dropped to her knees, immeasurable sadness and rage running through her. Once again, all she could do in the face of loss was scream. RAHHH. Hours later, the police had arrived on the scene and the firemen showed up to put out the flames. Izuku was brought to the Bakugo's house as they were her godparents. All Might went to the police station where he asked his friend, Detective Naomasa Tsukachi, what had happened. Well, from what we can tell, the fire was started during a cooking incident. Something went wrong with her stove. The detective explained. It seemed like someone tried to save her by taking her outside and putting out the flames, but unfortunately they were too late. How do you know that? All Might asked. The burns on her body would have been far more severe unless someone put them out. Not to mention Mrs. Midoriya had no means of breaking down a wall. Naomasa said. Do you know where her father is? All Might asked, wanting to know where the man was. Dead. He died when his children were 6. Naomasa said with a heavy sigh. That poor girl. It's like the universe has it out for her. All Might nodded, guilt eating away at him. I can't imagine things will get much better though. Naomasa elaborated. Her godparents are the Bakugos and form the file. I read it seemed like her and the boy have a bad history. A really bad history. Bakugo. All Might remembered that name. Izuku talked about him a few times, and from what he heard, he sounded like someone he did not want Izuku to be around right now. She's suffered enough. What if I took her in? All Might asked. Naomasa's eyes widened. Wait, are you serious? Tosh, if the media ever found out about this, there would be a connection between you and the girl, and one for all could be. Please, All Might said, cutting him off. I can't fail her again. Tears poured out of his sunken eyes. Naomasa sighed. He had known Toshinori for a while and knows that once he starts blaming himself for something, he won't feel better until he's done something to balance it out. He would have to get permission from the Bakugos as they are her current legal guardians, Naomasa explained. All Might wiped the tears out of his eyes. How do I do that? I can set up a meeting between you two if you would like, Naomasa said. All Might smiled at his friend. Thank you. A few days later, sitting in the living room of the Bakugo household were All Might in civilian form and Naomasa. Across from them was a very stern-looking Mitsuki Bakugo. Izuku was up in the guest room. She had barely left it since she got here. Katsuki was in his room doing his best to avoid Izuku as well as people in general. And Masaru was buying food, leaving Mitsuki alone with the hero and detective. So, you want to explain to me why I should let some random asshole I've never met take care of my best friend's kid? She said. Both men were off-put by the bluntness and profanity. Naomasa was first to give a response. Well, Mr. Yagi is. All Might cut him off by standing up and revealing his buff form. Naomasa was blown back. Tosh, what are you doing? Whatever it takes, was his response. Mitsuki was unimpressed. So you have a shape-shifting quirk. So what? Naomasa was ready to try and save face by saying yes, but before he could, All Might ran behind Mitsuki at speed so fast neither could see him. Mrs. I assure you I am the real All Might, he said from behind her. Mitsuki freaked out. What? Then what the fuck was with that skinny thing? All Might reverted back into his smaller form. This is my true form, you could say. I keep it secret from the public for self-explanatory reason. Mitsuki raised an eyebrow. Then why the fuck are you showing me? Because I can't fail her anymore, All Might confessed. Mitsuki looked confused by this. What the hell does that mean? All Might looked at the floor between his knees as he sat back down. I couldn't save Mrs. Midoriya from the fire. Mitsuki's confused look stayed on her face. Yeah, and Inko's death was horrible, but in no fucking way was it your fault. Even you can't save everyone. Naomasa flinched. He knew what was going to happen next. Mitsuki's confused face turned into a suspicious scowl. There's something else. I can see it on your faces. Well, come on, spit it out. All Might took a deep breath and swallowed his guilt. When I met Izuku, I found her crying on a park bench. All Might explained. I went up to her in my hero form and asked her what was wrong. She started freaking out and fangirling, and I got a sense of deja vu. She looked very similar to a boy I had met only a couple of weeks ago. Mitsuki's eyes widened at what All Might just implied. She told me that her brother had committed suicide a couple of weeks ago. All Might continued. Her brother was indeed the one I had met on the day of his death. Wait, Mitsuki butted in. So you feel bad cause you couldn't stop him from killing himself? Don't. No one knew he was gonna do something like that. And you just met him that same day. All Might gulped. That's not all. When I met Izuku, he asked me something. Can I be a hero without a quirk? Suddenly everything made more sense. And you told him no, Mitsuki said, already knowing where this was going. All Might nodded. The room was silent for a moment. Then Mitsuki got up and slapped All Might across the face. Gah. All Might spit out some blood. Mitsuki then sat back down and said, all right, you can take her. To say the two men were shocked would be an understatement. I am sorry, what? Naomasa said, his mouth hanging open. You can take Izuku, Mitsuki reiterated. Mitsuki looked at the two's dumbfounded faces and explained. You weren't the first to tell Izuku that his dreams were just that. Dreams, basically. Everyone but his sister told him that, and even she cringed whenever he brought it up. You were just the straw that broke the camel's back. He looked up to you. Hearing his hero tell him that was probably too much for the poor kid. But All Might tried to get a word in, but Mitsuki wasn't having it. That's why I slapped you, dumbass. You should know that as a hero your words have weight. Mitsuki continued. All Might looked down, ashamed. But, Mitsuki went on. You only knew the kid for probably 5 minutes. You had no way of knowing what Izuku's life was like. You probably said that to keep him from doing something dumb and getting hurt. Right. Well, yes, but... Well, there you go. Mitsuki said, cutting All Might off again. You're no more responsible for Izuku's death than my brat. All Might was so confused. Naomasa coughed to remind the two that he was indeed still there. Well, that's all well and good, Mrs. Bakugo, but can you explain why you're choosing to give Izuku up so quickly? Mitsuki groaned. If I had to guess, it's the same reason you wanted to take her. My brat son. The room went quiet again until Mitsuki elaborated. Look, I know my son has been an ass, and because of that he and Izuku never got along, and the last thing that girl needs right now is stress. Look, I may not 100% trust you with kids after what you said to Izuku, but you're still All Might. I know you care about her, otherwise you wouldn't have revealed your secret. Plus you're my only other option anyway. The two men didn't know what to say. Everything she said was correct, but the way she said it was so blunt. Well, Naomasa said, recovering from his stupor. I'm glad we could come to an agreement. We'll pick up Izuku tomorrow morning then. Thank you for being so understanding. Have a nice day. And with that, the two men got up and were about to leave when Mitsuki stopped them. Wait just one fucking second. The two men did just that. Have you told Izuku about what you just told me? About Izuku? It wasn't a question. She already knew the answer given how he was so hesitant to tell her about it. All Might shuffled his feet in discomfort. Not yet. I had been training her for the past few weeks and she knows about this form. I had been meaning to tell her, but you're a massive pussy. She sighed. You can go, she said, pointing at Naomasa. You stay, she said, pointing at All Might. The two looked hesitant, but the look on Mitsuki's face indicated she was not taking no for an answer. Naomasa left, leaving All Might and Mitsuki alone. Without another word, Mitsuki went upstairs. All Might nervously looked around the room. He knew what was going to happen and he was not ready. Mitsuki came back down and behind her was Izuku. Her green hair was not in her usual ponytail, but instead, it was messy and all over the place. Her normally green eyes were now red and had bags underneath it. Her clothes were messy and dirty as if she hadn't changed in days, and tear streaks were still present on her cheeks. Overall, she was a mess. She looked at him and her eyes came to life with befuddlement. Good news, Izuku. All Might here has agreed to take you in, Mitsuki said, not bothering to explain the situation. Huh, she said. Well, due to how you spoke of young Bakugo, I thought it would be a bad idea to keep you two under the same household. So I asked Mrs. Bakugo if I could take custody of you. In order to gain her trust, I revealed to her my secret. Izuku looked at him in disbelief. You revealed your secret. For me, All Might gave her a sad smile. Of course, I would show the whole world this form if it meant making you happy. Izuku said nothing as she just looked at All Might in shock. Then tears once again rolled down her cheeks as she ran up and hugged the skinny man. See, thank you. All Might returned the hug as the two embraced. After a few seconds, Mitsuki coughed, getting All Might's attention. She gave him a look telling him what he had to do. All Might breathed in deeply, tightening the hug. Young Midoriya. No, Izuku. I have kept something from you. Something I should have told you a while ago, but I didn't have the strength to say it. Izuku took her head off of his chest and looked at him. What? Your brother? I met him. Izuku looked at him confused. You met Izuku? When? He definitely would have said something about. It was the day he died. Izuku's eyes widened and she broke up the hug. What happened? Her voice was deadly serious. All Might looked at her, his eyes full of remorse. He asked me if he could be a hero, even if he was quirkless. Oh. Izuku didn't need to hear the rest. The room was quiet as Izuku digested this information. I understand if you don't want to come with me. I just want you to know. All Might's tears returned as he faced the last living family member of a boy who in his mind he had killed. Sorry. Izuku didn't say anything for a moment before she turned to Mitsuki. Aunt Mitsuki, could we have some privacy? The girl asked. Mitsuki nodded and went upstairs. After that came another few minutes of silence. Did you mean to? Izuku said suddenly. What? All Might asked. Did you mean to kill him? Izuku reiterated. What? No, of course not. I had meant to discourage him from putting himself in danger. Came All Might's panicked response. Then it's not your fault, she said without hesitation. All Might stared at her with silent shock. She should hate me. Why? How can she be so forgiving? Izuku sat down on the sofa and glared at the ceiling where unknown to All Might Katsuki's room was located. There are a lot of people who are responsible for my brother's death. So many I can't even remember them all. But you are not one of them. All Might had nothing to say to that. Izuku patted the spot next to her on the sofa, signaling him to sit, which he gladly complied with, tired from the emotional weight he had been holding on his chest for weeks. Izuku rested her head on his shoulder and for a few minutes, the two of them sat in comfortable silence. Hey, All Might. Yes? Can we go home now? Of course. Bakugo wished he was someone else. This was strange since if you looked at the boy 2 months ago, he wouldn't want to be anyone but him. But when Deku died, the way Bakugo looked back on his life in a different light. The times he put Deku in his place now seemed like nothing more than senseless beatings on someone who couldn't even defend himself. The times he made fun of Deku, saying that he could never be a hero, now seemed cruel. As Bakugo looked back, he started to see just how much damage he did to Izuku both physically and mentally. Bakugo used to have a rather simple thought process. Heroes win, villains lose. But who won here? Izuku didn't. He was dead, and Bakugo certainly didn't feel like a winner. No one won anything. This was all pointless. And the worst part was Deku. No, Izuku didn't even do anything wrong. For so long he had thought that Deku was looking down on him, thinking that a quirkless loser could compete with him. He thought that all the praises, all the looks of admiration were all fake, that Deku was making fun of him. But if that was the case, why would he kill himself? Bakugo was forced to face the reality that everything he knew was wrong. And now all those compliments sank into him like hot knives as he now knew they were all genuine and that he beat the shit out of someone who was once his friend for literally no fucking reason. Bakugo walked to school that day and as usual, all eyes were on him. Except this time things were different. They looked at him as if he just killed someone. Because you did. They looked at him like he was the scum of the earth. Because you are. They looked at him like they could be next. They might be. Bakugo sat down at his desk while the other students around him whispered. I didn't think he would actually do it. I always knew Bakugo was a villain. Someone like that can never be a hero. They all whispered and acted like they didn't all laugh and make fun of Izuku themselves. But they never went as far as you. The teacher walked in. But it wasn't the same teacher as before. Bakugo, welcome back, the teacher said. You have absent for a little over a month. Understandable considering how close your family was to the Midoriyas. Well, you should now that you old teacher was deemed unfit to teach after. incident, so I'm here to fill in until they can find a proper replacement. That makes sense. All right, class, I have an announcement. The teacher said. As you all know, Izuku Midoriya's brother has passed. However, something just as unfortunate happened, and yesterday her mother was unfortunately killed in a fire. She will be moving to live with a friend and as such will no longer be attending this school. The eyes of all the students went wide as they began to whisper once more. What the hell? What kind of bad luck do you have to have for that to happen? Luck my ass, Bakugo probably did it. Yeah, that asshole has always had it out for the Midoriyas. She died in a fire. His quirk can start fires. Coincidence. They think I killed Auntie. I wouldn't. You didn't think you would kill Izuku either, but look what happened. After lunch, there was an anti-bullying seminar. Apparently, there had been a lot of these after Izuku died. The school must be trying to save face. And they had one just on the day you came back. How subtle. After school, Bakugo walked home. He walked slowly into his room and crawled into his bed. He stayed there for hours, reflecting on his deed, on his life, until his mother walked in. She looked at him and sighed. It had been getting worse. At first, he was just shocked. He still went about his day as normal, but everything he did was half-hearted. Then he started zoning out, staring at nothing while lost in thought. He started calling her mom instead of old hag. He did what he was told without uttering a single curse. Then he just shut down, going into his room and only coming out to eat. This had to stop. She walked over and sat on the bed next to her son. I'm not gonna say that you're blameless, because you aren't. You didn't listen to me when I told you to stop. And now look what happened. Katsuki didn't move. But, Mitsuki continued, you're not completely at fault either. There are a lot of reasons Izuku did what he did. There may even be more than I know of. But still, it's not like you told him to jump. For the first time since he was 6, Bakugo Katsuki flinched. Mitsuki felt her heart skip a beat. Katsuki, you didn't tell him to jump, right? Bakugo turned his head to look at her, his eyes haunted by his own mistake. I didn't think he would. The room was silent. Inko, I'm sorry. I failed as a parent. Mitsuki didn't even know how to react. She didn't think her own son could ever do something so horrible. So she just stood there staring at him in shock. I thought he was looking down on me all this time. It pissed me off. I thought that he was trying to taunt me every time he said I was awesome or amazing or some shit. But if that's true, why the fuck would he kill himself? Tears started making their way down Katsuki's cheeks. Mitsuki had not seen her son cry since he was 5. Why did he let me do that to him? Why did he keep following me? Why did he keep saying how great of hero I was gonna be even after I kicked his ass into the dirt? Bakugo was screaming now, but he didn't care. He was letting out all the rage, sadness, confusion, and regret he had felt since Izuku died. Why was I such an idiot? Why did I say that? I didn't want him to fucking jump. So why the fuck did I say that? Why didn't I fucking listen when you told me to stop? Why didn't I stop when I saw the look on Auntie Inko's face whenever he came home hurt? Why didn't I get the hint when Izuku started calling me a monster? Why? He couldn't continue. He just cried. It was then Mitsuki knew what she had to do. She would ground him. She would yell his ear off. She would beat his ass till it turned crimson. But she would do all that later, because right now her son was hurt. And there was no fucking way she was going to leave him like that. So that night Mitsuki Bakugo held her son in her arms, and for the first time since he was 5, he let her. Later, after Bakugo had gone to sleep, Mitsuki went to her bedroom and grabbed her phone. She dialed a number and hoped the person she was calling was still awake. Auntie, what happened? Why are you calling so late? The voice was none other than Izuku, who had been staying up late training. Izuku, I just talked to Katsuki and I'm sorry, Mitsuki said. So he told you what he said? Izuku said, her tone getting darker. Mitsuki's eyes widened. You knew how many people were keeping secrets from her. First All Might came down and said he told Izuku he couldn't be a hero. Then her son said he told Izuku to kill himself. And now Izuku said she knew about that the whole time. Seriously, what the fuck? Yeah, he said it right in front of me, Izuku said. And I threw him out a window. Why didn't you tell anyone? The school gave me after-school detention for ... throwing another student out the window with my quirk. By the time I got out, Izuku was. Telling someone wouldn't have done any good at that point. Still, you should have said something. I was worried you wouldn't let him go to UA. What? Mitsuki was confused now. Why would she want Katsuki to get what he wants after what he did? Izuku always thought he would make a great hero. Almost every time we talked about heroes, Izuku fantasized about him and Katsuki being friends again while they took down villains. Obviously, that will never happen, but I want to at least make some part of that dream come true. So for that, Katsuki needs to become a hero. Oh, was Mitsuki's response. She wasn't really sure if this was a bad sign or not. Anyway, please let him go to UA. Auntie, for Izuku. Sure. Mitsuki felt really uncomfortable about where this could be going. Thank you. Please make sure he gets back to training. I want him to be at his best when I permanently beat him into second place. And there was the red flag. Anyway, I have to get back to training. Bye, Auntie. Click. Mitsuki sighed as she put down the phone. Okay, now I have to find both of them a therapist. A few weeks later, Inko's funeral was much like Izuku's. It even had the same amount of people with All Might attending. Or at least that's how it looked. In actuality, there were 2 more people in the background. Izuku and Eri looked at the funeral from a few yards away behind a large tree. Izuku had his hood up so no one could recognize him, and Eri was sitting on his bike watching the whole thing unfold. Why don't you go closer? She asked in a whisper. Izuku had a hard time answering that question. In truth, he still felt responsible for his mother's death and felt that everyone was better off without him. But he couldn't tell her that. Because it's better this way, he said vaguely. How? The girl asked, confused. You'll understand when you're older, Izuku replied. It wasn't really a lie. She very well might understand what he was doing when she got to his age. Izuku just hoped she would forget about by then. Izuku and Eri watched as they lowered his mother's body into the grave next to his, which they had fixed after his resurrection. Izuku was extremely confused as to what All Might was doing here and why he seemed so close to Izuku. He watched as everyone said their goodbyes and the Bakugos left. Afterward, it was just Izuku and All Might. I'm sorry I wasn't there, Izuku said, looking at the grave remorsefully. If I had, I could have saved you. All Might put his hand on her shoulder. Don't start blaming yourself, Izuku. There was nothing that could have been done. Guilt stabbed Izuku in the heart as he had to try hard to keep himself from crying. Eri saw this and went up and hugged his leg. Izuku smiled at this and looked back at the 2 with renewed strength. You're right, Izuku said before turning back to the graves. Don't worry, Mom. Izuku, I'll be the best #1 hero the world has ever seen. I swear, I'll make you both proud. Nope. Any emotional defense Izuku had broken apart and tears spilled from his eyes. Izuku, I'm sorry. You'll be better off without me. Hey, Izuku, Eri said. Yeah, Harry, Izuku responded, trying to wipe the tears from his eyes. Why does that lady look like you? She asked. Oh, she is my sister, Izuku answered. Eri looked at him puzzled. What is a sister? Damn you, overhaul. A sister is, well, a sister is someone you are very close to. Most of the time they have the same parents, but not all the time. When you do have the same parents, you'll probably look similar, Izuku explained, trying to encompass every possible definition. Eri's eyes lit up. Does that mean you're my sister? For how excited she was, Izuku was tempted to say yes. Boys can't be sisters. The boy version of a sister is called a brother, Izuku said. Oh, then you're my brother, Eri asked. Izuku smiled. Do you want me to be? Eri nodded. Izuku gave her a pat on the head. Then yes, since I'm older, that makes me your big brother and you're my little sister. Eri smiled, a rare sight that always warmed his technically dead heart. Eri felt a warmth inside her chest. Having a big brother made her really happy for some reason. But then a thought popped into her head and she frowned again. But, you already have a sister. Izuku shook his head at this. You can have more than one brother or sister, Eri. Oh, Eri said understandingly. If he weren't at his mom's funeral, Izuku would have laughed at her naivete. With that explanation done, Izuku turning back to his other sister and All Might. All Might was leaving and Izuku was following him. Izuku was now really confused as to what was going on with those 2, but he trusted All Might. When they left, Izuku came out of hiding and removed his hood. He and Eri walked up to his mother's tombstone. Izuku kneeled down and stared at the writing. Here lies Izuku Midoriya. Friend, mother, mom, I'm sorry I can't take back what I did. If I knew the deal would cost you your life, I wouldn't have taken it. But I can't change the past. But I can help the future. Izuku signaled Eri to come and she stood next to him. Mom, this is Eri. She was in a bad place with bad people. I saved her. I know that doesn't make up for what I did, but I hope that one day ... if I save enough people ... one day you'll forgive me. The tears returned with force and poured from Izuku's eyes once more. And maybe one day, I'll forgive myself. Eri hugged him once more. Izuku smiled, tears still pouring. He picked up Eri and rose back up. Goodbye, Mom. As Izuku walked away, Eri waved at the grave. Bye, Izuku's mama. Izuku ruffled her hair. You are too good for this world, Eri. Eri didn't know what that meant, but she liked it when Izuku did stuff like ruffle her hair or hug her. Whenever one of the Yakuza members touched her, it was forceful and always hurt a little. And whenever Overhaul touched her, it hurt a lot. When Izuku touched her, it was always so gentle and caring, and when he was in his skeleton form, he was always so warm. For the first time, Eri found herself smiling twice in one day. She was so glad Izuku murdered all the Yakuza. They walked back to Izuku's bike, set Eri down on the seat and then sat down in front of her. Eri wrapped her arms around him and Izuku picked up the motorcycle helmet on the ground next to them and placed it on Eri's head. The helmet was pink with butterflies on it and was far too big for Eri. Izuku bought it with money he took from some drug dealers he killed. Izuku put his hood back up after making sure Eri wasn't going to fall. The 2 rocketed away back home. The former Yakuza hideout had been transformed into a comfy living space for Izuku and Eri. Eri insisted on sharing the same room and bed, so the bedroom mostly consisted of hero merch that he and Eri liked. The kitchen now had a small table with a basket of apples in the center. When Izuku first gave Eri an apple, she said it was the best thing she had ever tasted. In response, Izuku always made sure there were apples in the basket and apple juice in the fridge, because Izuku was always willing to spoil her and he had killed enough villains to have a large amount of money. Izuku had also got Eri multiple gaming consoles, including a computer to keep her occupied whenever he was out killing villains. After teaching her how to use them, he showed her a bunch of educational games that Eri immediately gravitated towards. Every time Izuku came from a busy day of manslaughter, Eri would always run up to him and tell him all the new things she learned, and Izuku would always listen with a smile on his face as he cleaned the blood off his clothes. Izuku had also bought a new TV and sofa, which was a nightmare to carry on a motorcycle and put into an underground hideout without anyone noticing. But somehow he managed. Before bed, Izuku and Eri sat down and watched hero fights on the news, and Izuku would analyze their quirks, causing him to go into a muttering storm. And Eri would watch and jump in with her own analysis, which, while inaccurate and far-fetched, were always cute. The lab had been turned into Izuku's workroom. Izuku kept his weapons and motorcycle there, as well as all the medical supplies. He destroyed most of the formulas and beakers and burned all the papers after reading them. Izuku was slightly disturbed by how Eri had no problems walking into the room whenever he came in there, considering the room always smells like blood. Eri had become much happier and more energetic since Izuku found her. She still wasn't used to smiling, but she was learning. Izuku made it his goal to make her smile at least once a day, although he had yet to make her laugh. He had gotten her a bunch of new clothes to replace the dirty dress he found her in. Most of them were hero-themed. After looking through Chrono's papers, Izuku found that Eri's quirk wasn't just an age regression quirk, it was a biological rewind quirk, or just rewind for short. It could turn someone into a baby, or a monkey, or nothing. She could also destroy someone's quirk by rewinding their body to the point before humans had evolved and gained quirks. Ever since then, Izuku had been trying to teach her how to control her quirk, and act Eri was very grateful for. Izuku, on the other hand, hadn't really changed all too much. Thanks to being the spirit of vengeance, Izuku didn't really have a problem with killing criminals. He treated it basically like community service, which to him it was, even if he did take some money from his victims. Overall, they were doing well for a boy who died, lost his mother, and now has to kill criminals, and a little girl who's been through hell. The two were sitting down watching the news when suddenly the picture on the screen changed from a group of heroes to Izuku in his skeleton form. Izuku went to get the remote to change the channel. He didn't like the idea or rewatching the news talk about his job, so whenever he came on, Izuku changed the channel, much to Eri's annoyance. Except this time the remote was gone, and Eri was smiling. "Eri, where did you put the remote?" Izuku asked. Eri said nothing and kept watching the screen, smiling at finally getting to see her new brother on the news, thinking that people would praise him like they did the heroes. "There were 4 more murders tonight, or at least 4 that we know of," the newswoman said. "All signs point to the villain that had been terrorizing the city." Ire's simile faded and turned into a confused frown. Terrorizing? Villain? The skull-headed pyromaniac was been given many names on social media, the most popular one being Hellflame. However, those people were swiftly sued by Endeavor for using the name of his quirk, so the police have decided to call him by his second most popular name, Ghost Rider, said the newsman. Ghost Rider, Izuku thought. That sounded like something from 1972. Ever since his first appearance destroying the Yakuza organization, he has been murdering criminals left and right. Heroes have attempted to stop them, but with his flaming motorcycle he has proved too fast for all who have tried. The newsman continued. Eri was starting to get really confused. Why are people trying to stop him? However, number 3 hero Hawks released a statement on this matter, a rare occasion which we will show you now. The image changed to show Hawks with a microphone looking as nonchalant as ever. Yeah, Ghost Rider, I'll take care of it." And then he flew away, and the screen changed back to the news people. While the statement was brief, it gives us hope that this maniac will finally be put behind bars, the newswoman said. "But he doesn't need to be behind bars," Eri yelled at the TV. Izuku sighed and left to start looking for the remote elsewhere. "I know I have hope," echoed the newsman. "I can't wait till this is all behind us and this man faces the consequences for his actions. He didn't do anything wrong. He's helping." Eri screamed, tears shining in her eyes. "Now we have a special guest tonight whom we mentioned earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, it's number 2 hero Endeavor." The screen shifted to Endeavor sitting on a couch with another news lady. "Hi, I'm Teori here with Endeavor," she said, introducing herself. "First, I would like to thank you for accepting this interview." "You're welcome," Endeavor said, looking like he didn't want to be here. "I would like to ask you if you plan on helping Hawks take down the Ghost Rider," Teori asked. Endeavor glared at her. "I don't need that layabout's help. I will deal with this villain like all the others." "He's not a villain." Eri started pounding on the TV screen. "Well, with both the number 2 and number 3 hero on the job, I'm sure." Boop. Eri looked around to find Izuku had found the remote. "The bowl of apples. Really, Eri? I am ashamed I didn't find it sooner," Izuku said. Eri ran to him and Izuku knelt down to let her hug him. Why? Why are they saying such mean things? Eri cried into his torso. Izuku sighed. He knew this would happen eventually. He just hoped that it would have happened later. Eri, I'm not a hero. To be a hero you have to go to hero school and obtain a hero license. If you try to fight crime without a hero license, then you are considered a vigilante, which is illegal. I would be a vigilante, but because I kill people I am considered a villain, Izuku explained. But you save people, Eri argued. And you only kill bad people. Izuku shook his head. It doesn't matter, Eri. You could save 1,000 people and only kill one person and you would still be a villain. That's how the world works. That's not fair. You're not a villain. Overhaul was a villain and you're not like him. Eri screamed. Eri, regardless of everything else, I kill people. Yes, they do deserve it, but not everyone sees it like that. You're not supposed to kill people. Even heroes are told to avoid killing if they don't have to. Why? If they hurt people they should die. Why is that a problem? Izuku stared at her speechless. Did she did she just say that? It was then Izuku realized something. The only people Eri had ever known were killers. And him, the only person to ever be nice to her, was a serial killer. No wonder killing was so normal to her. No wonder she was able to walk into rooms that smelled like blood and not even flinch. She was used to it. And even if she showed a problem with killing innocent people, that didn't mean she felt bad for not so innocent people dying. Izuku pushed Eri back a bit and put his hands on her shoulders. Eri, killing is not normal. I do it because I have to. It's my job as the spirit of vengeance. But people shouldn't just kill because they feel like it. I know you may not understand this right now, but you will. I promise. Eri sniffed, her head tilted in confusion. But it's not fair. You saved people. You saved me. You should be a hero. A tear of joy ran down Izuku's cheek and a smile found a way onto his face. That was the first time anyone ever told him that. Thank you, Eri. Izuku looked at the clock. It read 11:30. He stood up and looked back at Eri. Hey, let's go to bed. Eri nodded and raised her arms, telling Izuku she wanted to be picked up. Izuku did just that as he carried her to bed. He opened the bedroom door before closing it again. He turned off the lights and walked over to the bed. He placed her in the bed before crawling in there himself. Eri placed her arms around his waist and Izuku turned on his green flames. And in no time Eri was asleep. Izuku looked at her. She was holding on to him tighter than usual. I really need to get her to meet some new people. Of course, this was easier said than done. Because while Eri has happier and more energetic around him, he had a feeling that she would not be the same way around other people. Not to mention the problem that was finding a person he could trust around Eri in the first place. He would get her a therapist, but that would be even more difficult considering he was legally dead and Eri didn't legally exist. Izuku closed his eyes. Maybe I should get her a cat. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a man watched the news feed and smiled. With how the media portrays him, perhaps I can turn this incarnation of the spirit of vengeance into an ally. After all these years, you still don't know how the spirit of vengeance works. Well, I am only human, Blackheart. A demonic laugh echoed. Oh please, we both know you gave up your humanity long ago. All for one. The two old friends laughed at this before All for One brought up the elephant in the room. So then, how are we gonna kill this one? A month before the UA entrance exam, Izuku laid there on Dagobah Beach, utterly exhausted. The last test before she could receive All for One was to clean up Dagobah Beach that had been covered in trash without her quirk. All Might didn't really think this through, as Izuku would stay at the beach for as long as she could and would sneak out at night to continue her task. You see, Izuku was almost a perfect student. She didn't complain, she did what she was told, and she was passionately devoted to her training. The only problem was she was a bit too devoted to training. When she wasn't busy studying, she was training, and this caused a few problems. She would often collapse and would have to take a couple of days off to recover. She had started doing this less and less, but it was still an issue. Well, that was quick, All Might said, looking around the now clear beach. Well, the time has come. Izuku quickly pulled herself off the ground and stood at attention. All Might chuckled. He reached for the top of his head and plucked out a hair before holding out to Izuku. Eat this. Izuku stared at the hair, confused. What? All Might rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. In order to inherit my power, you have to take in my DNA. Izuku deadpanned. That's kind of underwhelming. I was expecting more lights and flashiness. Well, reality is often disappointing. All Might responded. Izuku sighed and took the hair. She looked at it hard before she slowly put it in her mouth and swallowed. Ugh, why was it sour? Izuku asked, disgusted. All Might shrugged his shoulders, getting over the taste of sour hair. Izuku looks at herself. I don't feel any different. It will take a couple of hours to go through your digestive system. All Might explained. Oh, well, in the meantime I could train my quirk. Rest. All Might yelled, not having any of her nonsense. Izuku sighed. Fine. The day before the UA entrance exam, Bakugo had to make up for lost time. After confessing to his mother, Bakugo felt better. He wasn't back to his old self. It's almost impossible to think he could go back to his old self, but he was at least able to function. Right now he was practicing his aerial mobility. However, something was off. He was slowly flying away from his house. At first, Bakugo just thought that his trajectory was off. But when Bakugo was out of sight, his body flew far away from everyone else. The invisible force pushed Bakugo into the woods, where it promptly slammed him into the ground. Bakugo groaned and rose up to see Izuku with a face so smug it could rival Bakugo in his prime. "Hey, Kaken," she said, putting extra emphasis on the nickname while speaking in a sickly sweet voice. Bakugo shivered both at hearing that nickname and from the way she said it. Something is wrong. A quirk was never this strong. Bakugo got up but was quickly pushed back down by Izuku's quirk. "You know, I think I've been acting a bit unprofessional," Izuku said. "If we are both going to be heroes, then we might have to work together. And the way things are now, I don't think that would go well." Bakugo did not like where this was going. "Suwu, I thought of a way to ease the tension between us," Izuku lied. "Let's spar, Kaken." Bakugo tried to say something, but he felt Izuku's quirk keeping his mouth shut. Izuku started the battle by raising Bakugo into the air and hurling him through several trees. Bakugo got up. His back hurt like hell. Wait, Izuku did no such thing and picked up the trees that she had thrown Bakugo into and threw them at Bakugo. Bakugo used his quirk to maneuver himself out of the way of the attack. Bakugo tried to escape, but Izuku used her quirk to try and pull him back in. Bakugo increased the power of his explosions, trying desperately to escape. Izuku saw this and smirked and released Bakugo from the effect of her quirk, causing Bakugo to rocket full force into a tree. When the dust cleared, it showed Bakugo laying there, his head bleeding from the impact. Bakugo tried to get up, but Izuku picked up the fallen tree beside him and dropped it on top of him. Bakugo screamed in pain. Using her quirk, Izuku floated over to him, and she was pissed. "Pathetic. This battle is done. I can't injure you too much before the entrance exam." Bakugo stopped trying to escape and hoped Izuku was telling the truth about the battle being over. Izuku saw this and was even more infuriated. "Now you don't want to fight. Where the hell was this pacifism when my brother was alive?" Izuku used her quirk and lifted the tree off of him and lifted him into the air. "What happened to you?" she shouted. Bakugo felt a force pressing against his neck, choking him. "For so long I tried to get you to stop, and now when I actually want you to fight, now you choose to not fight. Fuck you. It's like you only exist to make my life harder." Bakugo started to see black spots fading in and out in the corner of his vision. He had no choice. Bakugo faced his palm towards Izuku. Boom! A large explosion unleashed from Bakugo's palm, releasing him from Izuku's quirk and sending both of them flying. Bakugo grunted in pain. He forced himself to his knees and looked towards the cloud of smoke Izuku had been sent flying, and Bakugo got up and readied himself for more of Izuku's attacks. When the smoke cleared, Bakugo didn't see Izuku. He saw Izuku, a 12-year-old Izuku. The young Izuku had bruises and burns all over his face, marks that were familiar to Bakugo. "Deku?" Bakugo asked, confused and scared. The young boy looked up at Bakugo with tears in his eyes. "Kaken, why?" Bakugo walked towards him, but little Izuku looked at him in fear and back away. "Wait," Bakugo yelled. "Don't go, please. I'm sorry, I didn't." And then he was picked up and slammed into the ground. Bakugo ignored the pain and quickly got back up to get Izuku, only to find he was gone, like he was never there in the first place. What the fuck was that? Instead of Izuku, there was Izuku standing in the exact same spot Izuku had stood in before. "You just started freaking the fuck out," she screamed. "What the hell is wrong with him? He thought I was Izuku. Has lost his mind." Then a thought came to her mind. Izuku lifted Bakugo off his feet and brought him in front of her. She forced his hand to rise up, his palm in front of her face. This sight was too familiar to Bakugo. Suddenly everything changed. Instead of the pissed of Izuku, there stood the scared Izuku. "Kaken, please stop." Bakugo started breathing heavily and tried to back away, forgetting that he was levitating. Suddenly something slaps him in the face and Izuku was gone. "You lost your fucking mind," Izuku said with a look of disbelief on her face. That disbelief turned to rage as threw Bakugo back into the ground. And this time he stayed down. "Useless. You're just an empty husk. A shell of your former self," Izuku raged. "You can't even hit me without going fucking nuts." Izuku stormed away, screaming curses all along the way. Bakugo waited until he could no longer hear her. Then slowly he got up and walked home limping. "What the fuck was that? I could use my quirk just fine." But when Izuku was there, Bakugo reached home and his mother freaked out. "What the fuck happened?" she asked, demand. Bakugo said nothing for a few seconds before responding. "I had a training accident." The next day, Izuku walked up to the gates of UA, absolutely pissed. That goddamn monster. What right does he have to grow a goddamn conscience now? Izuku wasn't blind or stupid. She knew that Bakugo didn't actually want her brother to die despite what he had done and said. She also knew that he had been affected by her brother's death, but she thought he would get over it. She thought that once the shock went away, he would go back to being the same heartless monster he always was. But no, apparently, he wasn't going back to normal, which drove Izuku insane, as beating the shit out of him was now nowhere near as satisfying. Izuku was so distracted that she didn't even notice the small rock in her way, causing her to trip. Before she hit the ground, she tried using her quirk to stop her fall and she felt someone touch her. Suddenly, she was rocketed into the sky. AHHH. Izuku flew through the air, not knowing what was going on. She deactivated her quirk and suddenly she fell like a rock. As she got closer to the ground, she activated her quirk and she felt someone touch her again, and once more she flew. This continued for quite some time until the UA staff managed to stop it and had brought her and a brown-haired girl to speak with the staff. Apparently, the brown-haired girl, Ochako Uraraka, had a zero-gravity quirk and had been attempting to stop her fall at the same time Izuku activated her telekinesis. The sudden loss of weight made it so when Izuku used her quirk, the force that would normally just be enough to hold her weight sent her flying. Seeing as it was all just an accident, the staff sent the two off with a warning. As soon as the staff left, Ochako turned towards Izuku and bowed. "I am so sorry." Izuku shook her head. "No, there's no need to apologize. You were just trying to help. If anything, I should be thanking you." "But I didn't actually help," Ochako said sheepishly. "Yeah, but it's the thought that counts," Izuku responded. Ochako smiled. "I guess. Oh, I have to go. Maybe we can hang out later." Izuku was taken aback. She had never really had friends. Most people avoided her due to how many people she sent to the nurse's office because they made fun of her brother. So to have someone ask her if she wanted to hang out was strange. "Sure," Izuku responded. They exchanged phone numbers and went their separate ways. Something about her reminded me of something. Flashback. A 10-year-old Izuku was crying after getting beat up defending someone else. After beating him up, the bullies then proceeded to beat up the other kid until Izuku showed up and kicked their ass. "Izuku, I'm sorry," he cried. Izuku patted her brother on the back. "It's okay. It's not your fault." Izuku shook his head rapidly. But I didn't even help." Izuku gave him a hug. "Yeah, but it's the thought that counts." Izuku sniffed. "Really?" Izuku smiled. "Really?" Back to the present. Izuku shed a tear and gave a sad smile of the bittersweet memory. "I really hope me and Ochako can be good friends." Later, Izuku pumped herself up. Now was the time for her to get first place. She looked towards the door when she saw something out of the corner of her eye. "Ochako." Izuku was about to say something to her when suddenly she felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned her head to see a tall boy with blue hair staring at her with disapproval in his eyes. "She is clearly trying to concentrate. Are you trying to distract her? If so, then leave immediately. UA has no room for such deplorable people," he said. All the other kids in the room looked at her and laughed, writing her off as no competition. And that made her blood boil. She quickly sent a wave of telekinetic force to all the empty spaces in the room, causing those spaces to crack open, and she sent out wave right beneath her, causing the ground to crack. "You assholes have something you want to say to my face," she yelled at the participants. No one said anything due to a combination of shock and fear. Izuku turned to the blue boy and gave him a deadly glare. "And you, what kind of asshole goes around assuming what people are doing and judging them based off that? Get off your high horse, fuckface." I was trying to tell her good luck. Before he could respond, the doors opened. "What are you waiting for?" came the voice of Present Mike. "In real life there is no countdown. Get your ass moving." Without another word, Izuku flew off into the fake city to take her anger out on some robots. She found two one-pointers and smashed them together. You see, Izuku's quirk was called telekinesis. She could move things with her mind. The heavier the things she's picking up, the fewer things she can pick up. She can only move things that she can see, and if she overuses her quirk, she will get very painful headaches. If she keeps using it after that, she will pass out. Normally, she could only lift something as heavy as a car. However, after receiving one for all, her quirk became supercharged. However, this has its problems. When Izuku first used her quirk after receiving it, she passed out and didn't wake up for 3 days. However, with some time and training, Izuku learned how to control one for all to some extent. It reminded her of the time she had to learn to control her quirk. Right now, she can only use 5% of her full power. However, 5% was still a massive improvement to her quirk, as she displayed by flying around and easily destroying any robot that came into view, and with her ability to fly, she was able to destroy robots much quicker than anyone else. Eventually, Izuku got so many points that she just stopped counting. She already knew she won, so instead she decided to find Ochako. Ochako saw her and waved before going back, smashing robots. Izuku used her quirk to place as many robots in front of her as possible and kept them immobile but didn't destroy them. Ochako looked at her confused for a second before shrugging and destroying the robots. Meanwhile, back with the teachers. "Who is that cheating?" Midnight asked. "Of course not." All Might answered a bit too quickly. "She is simply assisting another participant. She already has more than enough points, so the fact that she is helping others is a sign of a true hero." "Yeah, but it's unfair to everyone else," remarked Eraserhead from the back of the room. "The brown-haired girl is currently gaining points she doesn't deserve." This is why we put students from the same schools in different testing grounds. All Might scowled. The young lady has already proven she can destroy the robots by herself. Izuku is simply speeding up the process. Nezu sat in the back of the room sipping his tea. I think it's time to release the zero-pointer. Back with Izuku and Ochako. After destroying a bunch of robots with Izuku's help, Ochako decided she had done enough and took a break. Hey, Ochako said, looking at Izuku clutching her stomach. Not that I'm complaining, but why are you helping me? Shouldn't you be out getting points yourself? Izuku shrugged. I got enough. Before Ochako could respond, she felt the ground rumble, and this caused her to lose her balance and fall. Suddenly, almost right next to the gravity-defying duo came the zero-pointer rising out of the ground. Its emergence caused parts of the nearby building to fall off. A few of the pieces almost fell on Ochako, but Izuku pulled her out of the way in the nick of time. After that, Izuku lifted her into the sky next to her. Thank you, said Ochako, very glad she had not been squashed. Izuku flashed her a smile. After a good amount of time, the test was over. Later, Izuku walked out of the gates of UA, confident in her results. She was about to walk home when suddenly she heard someone shout, Hey, Izuku. Ochako ran up next to her, slightly out of breath. Hey, I thought we were gonna hang out. Ochako pouted. Izuku stepped back. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I'm not really used to people asking me to hang out with them. Ochako flashed her a determined smile. Well, I can't not hang out with my new friend. Izuku's eyes widened. We are friends? Ochako looked at her strangely. Well, duh. I'm pretty sure the only reason I passed the entrance exam. Izuku blushed. Never before had she received so much praise from anyone but her brother. Don't say that. You destroyed plenty of robots on your own. Ochako shook her head. Yeah, but thanks to you I was able to destroy a bunch more. But, no more buts, Ochako said, interrupting her. Now you want to hang out or what? Izuku looked at her for a second, bewildered before she smiled. Sure. Later, Izuku and Ochako sat down in a mochi shop and talked. So why did you help me during the exam? Ochako asked. Izuku scratched the back of her head sheepishly. Well, I got more than enough points and you were so nice to me when we met, so I just said why not. Wow, Ochako responded. You must be super strong. Izuku flashed her a smug grin. Yup. Suddenly Ochako's smile disappeared. Hey, so why did you do what you did with that blue-haired guy? Izuku sighed. Let's just say I really hate bullies. After all, one killed my brother. Meanwhile, with Izuku looked around the now bloody warehouse. He had just finished killing a group of small-time killers and was looking to see if there was anyone he missed. Not finding anyone, Izuku got back on his bike. Well, you are a hard demon to pin down. Zarathos. Izuku quickly turned his skull behind him to find that the source of the voice was none other than the number 3 hero himself. Long time no see. Izuku immediately summoned his bike and rocketed away. Hawks was somehow hot on his trail as he was flying much faster than anyone has seen him fly. Come on, Zarathos, I don't have all day, said the winged hero. Who is Zarathos? Izuku yelled behind him. Geez, did Mephisto tell you anything? Hawks asked. Who is Mephisto? What are you talking about? Izuku yelled. Hawks sighed. The hero then proceeded to wrap his wings around himself and disappeared in a puff of feathers. Since when could he? Crash. Izuku's bike was stopped as Hawks appeared in front of him and held up his foot to keep the wheel from moving. Chill, Hawks said. I'm not here to fight. Izuku looked at him cautiously and took his foot off the gas or whatever this thing needed to keep moving. Izuku got off his bike. You said to the media you were going to deal with me. Hawks waved his hand in a dismissive manner. Yeah, I just said that make them feel better. It's my job to manage the spirit of vengeance, so I kinda have to keep tabs on you. What? How do you know about that? Izuku asked, surprised. Hawks sighed. Suddenly he started to glow in a burst of light. After the light died, Hawks' clothes were replaced by dark armor. Guess I have to explain some things since Mephisto decided to be even more of an asshole than normal, Hawks said. Hawks looked around and made sure no one was looking. Hey, can we have this talk at your place? I really don't need people seeing me talking to you. No offense. Izuku was hesitant, but he needed answers. Who was Mephisto? Who was Zarathos? What was up with that strange armor? Izuku took out his chain and unfolded it. He then swung it around in a circle until the space within the circle began to distort and change and a ring of fire formed in the air. And then the image inside the circle changed and turned into the inside of his base. So you figured out how to make gates. Nice, Hawks said. They walked through and entered Izuku and Iri's humble home. Iri ran to the sound of the portal. Welcome, Ba. She took one look at Hawks before hiding behind Izuku's leg. Go away, she yelled. Iri, for now, he is our guest. Please go play in the bedroom while we talk, Izuku said. Iri gave him a worried look. Trust me. Begrudgingly, Iri separated from his leg and went away. Cute kid, Hawks said, smiling. Is yours. Izuku shook his head. Saved her from the Yakuza. They were doing unspeakable things to her. Hawks nodded. He looked around and saw that they were in Izuku's workroom. Not really a place kids should be around, Hawks remarked, looking at the blood-covered room. Not like I have much of a choice. Izuku shot back. Now start talking, please. Hawks cleared out his throat. First thing, the person you made a deal with wasn't the devil. What? Yup. The person you made a deal with was Mephisto. He is a lord of hell. God gave him the responsibility of giving the spirits of vengeance host. Spirits, as in more than one. Oh yeah, there used to be a ton of those. They were weapons forged in heaven made of God's wrath, and they were put in hell to receive the powers of hell. God then gave Mephisto the job of distributing these spirits to pure souls. Basically, it goes like this. A pure soul dies and God takes it and puts it in purgatory. Then Mephisto comes, offers them the power, and if they take it, they become a spirit of vengeance and rid the earth of all those sinners God hates so much. Wait, if that's true, then ... why did Mephisto kill my mother? Oh, that's simple. You see, Mephisto is an asshole, and sometimes while he is giving people the power of the spirit of vengeance, he also bonds them with the demon Zarathos, which can sometimes give them extra power. However, he doesn't directly say that and will do something that makes whoever he made the deal with miserable for kicks. There was a pause as that info sank in. So you're saying ... that my mother was killed for fun? Well, I said he was an asshole. Raghhh. Eri ran back into the room, worried for her brother, only to find him with his skull erupting in flames. Eri quickly hugged his waist in an attempt to get him to calm down. This worked ... sorta. He was still brimming with rage, but he no longer looked like he was going to set the room on fire. Izuku, no longer caring about Hawks being here, transformed back into his human state to keep himself from burning the base. Huh, you're just kid. It's rare that we get children as spirits of vengeance, Hawks remarked. After several minutes of Izuku calming himself down, clutching Eri close to him, he asked a question. You said there were other spirits of vengeance. What happened to them? Hawks sighed. Black art. He is the son of Mephisto, and he absolutely hates his father. So to get back at him, he allied with a powerful human who calls himself All for One, and together they destroyed almost all the spirits of vengeance. Just as the last one was about to be slaughtered, he transferred his power to someone else who then escaped. Later on, that person went on to help All Might take down All for One, but they were unable to kill him. That person died eventually, and the last spirit of vengeance went back to hell, and now you have it. This was a lot to take in. Izuku had so many questions, but really only one that he needed answered. Okay. How do you know all this? Oh, yeah. Well, first off, my real name is Zadkiel, and I'm what you would call a fallen angel. You see, when the war broke out in heaven, I sided with Lucifer. Turns out he was evil, so I betrayed him, and as punishment for siding with him in the first place, God made me lead heaven's Black Ops squad with the spirits of vengeance as my weapons. But then I fell asleep and suddenly ... well, you know. Hawks explained. Wait, Izuku stopped him. Are you saying that they all died because you fell asleep? Yup. Whoops. Hawks shrugged. Izuku didn't really know what to say to that. This was starting to be too much for Izuku to understand. Is there anything else you would like to tell me? Izuku asked, trying to quell his headache by holding Eri closer. Not really, just that I'm gonna be keeping an eye on you. I really can't have you dying, or else God will smite my ass. Hawks said. Right. Izuku nodded. Hawks looked at the two. Eri's face was now buried in Izuku's chest. It was one of the cutest things he has seen in years. Well, Hawks said, stretching his arms. Guess I better go. If you need anything, just open a gate to my place. See ya. And with that, the fallen angel disappeared in a puff of feathers. Izuku sighed. This was too much. There is a demon inside him. He is apparently a weapon of God. He didn't make a deal with the devil, just a demon lord who tricked him into making an unnecessary extra deal. Izuku needed to vent. He needed to get rid of some stress, and there was only one way to do that. Hey, Eri. She looked up at him, her face still full of concern. I have something you are really gonna like. Have you ever heard of candy apples? Eri's mouth watered. Later, there really was only one way for Izuku to vent. By spoiling Eri. Honestly, there was nothing that made him happier than seeing her smile. Once the candy apples were finished, Izuku took a camera. The look on her face when she bit into the treat was something that almost made Izuku forget about the last hour of expression entirely. Izuku put the picture and put it in his photo book that contained other precious moments from the girl, like the first time she used a computer and Eri's first time trying on new clothes. However, there was one picture Izuku always kept on his person. The first time he gave Eri an apple. The picture was of him holding Eri while she held an apple with a bite mark in it. Her face was filled with indescribable joy as tears of joy rolled down her face. Whenever Izuku was feeling down, whenever the media was giving him hell, whenever he encountered villains doing something truly disgusting, whenever he missed his family, he took out this picture. Of course, he had an extra copy for the photo book, but he still liked keeping it on him. As he watched Eri eat the apple, he felt that innocent blood had been spilled. Izuku sighed. Eri, I'm going out. Meanwhile, a week later with Izuka. Izuku looked proudly at her results. First place. With her combination of rescue points and villain points, she had utterly flattened the competition. She looked at the rest of the results. Ochako had gotten third place, something Izuku was sure she was happy about. Her eyes scrolled over the list until she found Bakugo. She didn't have to look hard as the boy was only in fourth place. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Suddenly her phone rang. She already knew who it was and answered. Izuku, I passed. Ochako screamed into the phone. Izuku smiled at who excited her friend was. Over the week the two had gotten rather close. Izuku had shown her around the city after hearing that she was new and the two had a lot of fun. Even if she had only known her for a week, Izuku had gotten really attached to the girl. Perhaps it was because she was the only friend she had ever made, or perhaps it was because she reminded her of her brother in some ways. Either way, Izuku had already deemed the girl her best friend. After all those robots you destroyed, of course you passed. Geez, have some pride, girl. Izuku responded. One trait Ochako had that annoyed Izuku was how humble she was. Yeah, it was good to be a little humble so you don't end up how Bakugo used to be, but Ochako always seemed to doubt herself. It was something that reminded her of her brother in a bad way. Lucky Ochako seemed very bubbly and optimistic, so Izuku didn't have to worry about her going down the same path. I mean, yeah, but I was still super nervous, Ochako said. Well, I think we should go out for dinner to celebrate, Izuku said. Sure, any place you want to go. Ochako asked. How about Hontoni Takai? Izuku responded. What, isn't that place like super expensive? Ochako asked, shocked. Yup, but considering the occasion, I think it's more than worth the money, Izuku responded. In truth, All Might had a lot of money. As the #1 hero, his paychecks were huge, and even though he gave a lot to charity, he still had a whole lot of money. He had given Izuku a debit card with a whole lot of money, so Izuku had a lot of cash. I can't let you pay for all that, and I don't have the money to. Just let me pay. Trust me, I'll be fine, Izuku said, cutting her off. Ochako sighed. She didn't really have a choice in the matter. Okay, the brown-haired girl said, giving in. Izuku smiled. All right, I'll meet you at your place at 8. They hung up and Izuku went to go find All Might. All Might's apartment was not what you would think it would be. It was rather humble, being a decent size with a bedroom, kitchen, 2 bathrooms, a living room, and a guest room, which was now Izuku's room. Izuku walked into All Might's room. It was actually rather plain with not much stuff in it aside from a few photos. All Might was currently taking a nap when Izuku came in and woke him up. Hey, All Might, me and Ochako are gonna go to Hontoni Takai, Izuku said, informing her legal guardian of her plans. Oh, all right, All Might responded tiredly. He was just happy she had made a friend. Izuku smiled and went off to get ready. Later at Hontoni Takai, Izuku and Ochako had gotten a table. Both of them had felt somewhat out of place in such a high-class environment, although that discomfort quickly dissipated when the food arrived and the two saw why this place was so expensive. So why do you want to become a hero? Izuku asked her friend. Ochako looked up from her food and swallowed. She gave her a worried look. Well, it's not super noble or anything, but I want to get enough money ... so my parents can live comfortably. I mean, I still want to save people, but my parents have done so much for me, I want to give back. Izuku raised an eyebrow. What are you talking about? That is super noble. Ochako blushed. Really? Izuku nodded. Of course. Ochako smiled, still blushing. Gee, thank you. Why do you want to be a hero? Izuku looked away. She had been avoiding talking about her situation with her family ... or lack thereof. But even if she had only known her for a week, Izuku felt she could tell her. If she wanted to be her friend, she was bound to know anyway, so might as well tell her now. Izuku took in a deep breath. I always wanted to be a hero. It was me and my brother's dream. Oh, you have a brother? Ochako interjected. Izuku gave her a sad look. Had. With that one word, the mood fell and Ochako's smile disappeared. I'm sorry, Ochako said quickly. I didn't mean to bring up something so painful. Izuku gave her a sad smile. It's okay. You didn't know. After a short pause, Izuku continued. It was mine and my brother's dream to be a hero. My brother just always wanted to help people for no other reason than to help people. I was just going along with him. He was always getting picked on, so it was my first instinct to protect him. I figured if I became a hero too, then I could keep protecting him. Tears were going down her face. But I couldn't protect him from everything. One day all the bullying was just too much for him to take. Some monster told him to jump off the roof and ... he did. So now I need to be a hero, so that way I can fulfill my brother's dream. Izuku started softly crying. She thought she would be able to confront this. She thought that talking about it would get easier as time went on. But she was wrong. She felt arms wrap around her. She looked up to see Ochako hugging her. Izuku wiped away her tears and smiled. It was so nice to have a friend. Sorry for making this a pity party. Izuku apologized. Ochako looked at her and gave her a sweet smile. It's fine. If any of my family died, I know I would be a wreck for God knows how long. I can only imagine what your family is going through. Izuku's face went dark. Ochako looked at her darkened expression and became confused. My dad died when I was 6, Izuku confessed, and my mother died month after my brother did. Ochako didn't know what to say, so she just hugged her friend. After a few more minutes, Ochako sat back down and the two finished their food. As they walked back out, Izuku apologized for bringing down the mood. It's fine, Ochako reassured. You must be going through a really hard time and I'm sure you could use a friend. I'm more than happy to help you out. After all, you helped me out a whole lot. Izuku looked at the girl for a second and hugged her. Ochako returned the hug and after a minute they broke apart. After Izuku walked Ochako home, she reflected on her life. She had lost a lot. Her dad, her brother, her mother and her home. But she also gained a lot too. A mentor, a new home, a new quirk, a friend. Of course, she still missed her family ... but maybe she could cope. Izuku walked home looking forward to what the future had to offer. Izuku walked towards her class with a smile on her face. Her ponytail was wrapped in her usual green bow. Her uniform was immaculate and her face showed no sign of tears. Today was her first day at UA, and she was extremely excited. Finally, she would be able to properly test and improve her skills. Because while All Might's training was good, it was nothing compared to what Izuku assumed UA training was going to be like. Less excited was Ochako, who Izuku had dragged out of bed early to walk to school with her. Why did we have to come so early? Ochako complained tiredly. Because if we come early then we won't be in danger of being late. Plus we might get brownie points with the teacher. Izuku responded. The two found the door that said 1A. Wow, Ochako said looking at the massive door. It's huge. Izuku shrugged. It probably because some students might have quirks that make them bigger that they can't turn off. Izuku walked through the door expecting the class to be empty. This was not the case, however, as the blue-haired boy from the entrance exam sitting there. What the hell? Izuku yelled in shock. How did you even get here so early? Ochako exclaimed just as shocked as her friend. A good student must arrive at the earliest time possible, the boy said waving his arms around. Is this guy even human? Izuku and Ochako thought at the same time. The boy rose from his seat and marched up to the two girls before giving an apologetic bow. My name is Ida Tenya and I would like to apologize for being presumptuous the first time we met. Clearly, you two are close friends and you had no intention of disrupting her, he said. Izuku scowled. Of course, he's sorry. Now that he knows who strong I am, he wants to get on my good side. Izuku walked past him and sat at her desk. Ochako sighed. Sorry about that. She is going through a bit of a rough patch and you did something that kind of hit a sore spot for her. Ada shook his head. No, it is perfectly understandable. What I did was unacceptable. I will need to work to earn her forgiveness. Izuku scoffed. Ochako went to Izuku, leaving Ada by himself. Come on, Izuku, at least give him a chance. He seems like he genuinely made a mistake and is trying to fix it. Izuku crossed her arms. Ochako, I know these types of people. They are so willing to pick on whoever looks the weakest, and if someone strong comes around they swarm around them. He's not sorry because he made a mistake. He's sorry because he sees that I'm not the weakling he thought I was. Ochako gave her friend a deadpan look. Now look who's being presumptuous. I am not being presumptuous, Izuku said, sounding offended. Ochako raised an eyebrow. How long have you known this guy? I only met him at the exam, Izuku answered. Right, so you've known this guy for like 15 minutes and now you're assuming that he is some sort of parasite. And you say you not being presumptuous, Ochako said. There was a pause as Izuku was forced to take in her own hypocrisy. Damn your logic, Izuku yelled in defeat. Izuku stood up and pointed at Ida. Ida looked at her surprised. I accept your apology, but I'm keeping an eye on you. Izuku pouted as she sat back down. Ida looked shocked. I see. I will do my best to be deserving of your forgiveness. Izuku scoffed once more and looked away. Ochako face-palmed. Well, I guess this was progress. Suddenly the door opened, and in walked in Bakugo Katsuki. Izuku groaned. You're fucking kidding me. Two of these assholes. Everyone minus Bakugo was shocked at her sudden outburst. Bakugo, on the other hand, just silently sat down and spoke to no one. Ochako sighed. So what's your problem with this guy? Izuku gave her a deadpan look. Do you have all day? Ochako wanted to rip her hair out. Let me guess, someone else you've known for 5 minutes. Try my entire life. He's one of the assholes who gave my brother a hard time, Izuku said. Oh, Ochako responded. Oh, sorry. Izuku sighed. It's fine. After that, Ochako just sat down and they all sat in silence until the other students came in. Later, all the students have arrived and yet there was no sign of the teacher. Honestly, what kind of teacher is this late? Izuku thought to herself. The students had been talking until suddenly what looked like a giant caterpillar came into the classroom. Then a homeless-looking man emerged from what now appeared to be some sort of sleeping bag. It took you 3 seconds to quiet down. You lot sure love wasting time, huh? Said the hobo-looking man. I am your teacher, Shota Aizawa. Get dressed and meet me outside. The class was alarmed at this sudden command. Wait, what about the orientation? Ochako cried. Aizawa rolled his eyes. Waste of time. Now hurry up. Izuku smirked. He's blunt but he doesn't waste time. I like that. Maybe this won't be so bad. Later outside, all the students lined up in their UA gym uniforms with Aizawa looking at them. Today we will be having quirk apprehension test, Aizawa explained. The students gave their teacher a confused look. You know those fitness tests you took in gym class? Well, this is the exact same thing but you can use your quirks, the teacher lazily explained. He took out a baseball and looked at Izuku. Izuku Midoriya, you got first on the entrance exam so you can demonstrate. Stand here. He pointed at a small circle on the ground next to him. Izuku did as told and awaited further instructions. Aizawa offered her the ball and Izuku picked it up with her quirk. Just throw this as far as you can with your quirk, said Aizawa. Izuku smirked and with no other words, she threw the ball using her quirk and 5% of one for all. The ball soared through the air. Izuku forced it away from her with her quirk until the ball went past the range of her quirk. Aizawa looked at a small device that seemed to be tracking the ball before holding it up for the class to see. 700 meters. The class was shocked at this ridiculously high number. Well, way to go, Izuku. Ochako cheered. Izuku put on a smug face as she received all the praise and amazed looks. This looks like it could be fun, cheered the pink girl called Mina. This apparently hit a nerve with Aizawa as he gave them all a glare. Fun? If you think your time at UA is going to be a walk in the park, then you are sadly mistaken. How about this? The person who places last in the test will be expelled. What? Fried all the students with the exception of Izuku, Momo, and Bakugo who didn't buy it, as well as Todoroki who did not care. Ochako was about to say that. That wasn't fair, but the second she opened her mouth she felt it close again. She looked at Izuku who mouthed the words, he's bullshitting. Ochako looked at her confused. How does she know that? Izuku seeming knew what she was thinking and mouthed, trust me. Ochako gulped. Well, she hasn't led me wrong so far. And so the test went on with Izuku using her quirk to get impressive results, although she grew somewhat frustrated seeing that Momo and Todoroki get scores close to or above hers. After all, the tests were done and the class looked nervously at the results. Momo had gotten first and Todoroki and Izuku were tied for second, and Maida had gotten last place. NOOO, cried the short grape boy as he got on his knees and started crying. Oh, by the way, Aizawa said, getting everyone's attention. I was bluffing about the expulsion. HUHHH, cried most of the class. It was a logical ruse, Momo said simply. I'm surprised no one else figured it out. Bakugo didn't care to correct her and Izuku was too busy staring in shock at the result. I got second, and I tied for it. She wasn't angry or anything, she was just shocked that after all that training and receiving one for all, she didn't first. Quickly pulling herself back together, Izuku pointed at Momo. You. Momo jumped a little at how suddenly she yelled at her. Izuku walked toward her. You are now my rival. You had better stay on your toes because you won't be on top for long. Momo did not quite know how to respond to this, so she just said, okay. Bakugo looked up at the board. He got third place, however he was actually behind 4 people. A while back this would have filled him with rage. He would be cursing and popping off explosions. But now he felt nothing. Later, Aizawa had dismissed the class and they all went to go home. Well, except for Izuku, who was going to hang out with Ochako at her house. However, as they walked home they heard someone behind them. Izuku Midoriya, it seems we are all headed to the same train station, said Ida, who had walked next to them. Would you mind if I walked with you? Izuku scowled. Yes, actually we WWW. Of course you can, Ochako said, elbowing Izuku in the arm. I would love to have as many friends as possible. Izuku would too, even if she is a bit of a grump. I am not a grump, Izuku said, rubbing her arm. You are a grump and that's okay, Ochako said, not having any of it. If you truly do not want me to walk with you, that is fine, Ida said, chopping the air. I did say I would work towards forgiveness and I intend to honor those words. Really, it's fine, Ochako reassured. Right, Izuku? Ochako gave her a look indicating that there was only one right answer to that question. Izuku sighed. I did say I would give him a chance. Fine, Izuku groaned. Ada smiled. Well then let us go. We must not be late. Later with Bakugo. Bakugo walked home slowly, trying to answer a question that has been haunting him as of late. He got home and opened the door. His father was sitting on the couch reading a newspaper, which he put down when he heard his son walk in. Katsuki, how was your first day? He asked. It was ... fine, Katsuki said before walking past his father and into his room. Masaru sighed. One of the many bad things that happened in the wake of Izuku's death was the absence of noise in his household. While most people would love the peace and quiet, Masaru rather enjoyed hearing the voices of his wife and child, even if they were yelling at each other. But now that was all gone. Now the only sound that came from the Bakugo house was Mitsuki's occasional outburst. The man walked up to his son's room and knocked on the door. It opened due to the fact Katsuki had not fully closed it. Inside was Katsuki laying on his bed staring at the ceiling. Masaru walked over and sat next to his son. "Tell me what's wrong," Masaru said. "Nothing's wrong," Katsuki said in a monotone. There was a pause before Masaru decided on what to say. "Your mother told me ... what you said to Izuku," Masaru admitted. Katsuki didn't say a word and instead continued looking at the ceiling. "Like your mother said," Masaru continued. "I can't say you're blameless ... but you are no more at fault than we are." This made Bakugo look over at his dad in confusion. "Dad, what the fuck are you talking about? You and Mom didn't do shit, you." "And that's the point," Masaru said, cutting his son off. "Our son was murdering an innocent boy ... for years ... and all we did was apologize and say it wouldn't happen again ... We failed ... as parents ... and now you're hurting because of it." Masaru put his arms around Katsuki and embraced his son. "Me and your mother refuse to fail you again. She is already trying to fix the mistakes we made, and I have to try as well," Masaru said, tightening the hug. "So please ... tell me what's wrong." How could Katsuki refuse? I don't know what to do," Katsuki admitted. "Izuku wanted me to be a big hero, and now Izuku is trying to get me to be one too. I know I still want to be a hero ... but how can I be a hero when I have fucking blood on my hands?" There was another pause. "Katsuki, do you really want to be the kind of hero Izuku thought you could be?" Masaru asked. I do. I think I owe it to him to try, but I don't know how to do it. I was so focused on trying to the best. I thought it was my destiny or some shit, but because I was like that, Izuku died. So now what? If everything I've spent my life doing leads to ... that, then what the fuck am I supposed to do?" Katsuki answered. "Help people," Masaru answered. Katsuki looked at his father, confused at the simple answer. "All Izuku ever wanted was to help people," Masaru explained. "So if you really want to be the kind of hero Izuku could be proud of ... all you need to do is help people to the best of your ability." It sounded so simple, but at the same time, it felt so right to Katsuki. "Thanks, Dad," Katsuki said. Masaru smiled. "You're welcome, son." Izuku had barely stepped inside when Eri ran up to him. Izuku, look." The excited little girl grabbed his leg and attempted to pull him toward their room. "Eri, calm down," Izuku said, pulling her off of him. "Let me clean the blood off me first." After doing just that and putting those clothes in the hamper, he went to the room to see Eri pointing at the computer. "All right, what did you want to show me?" Izuku asked. Eri played a video showing a very well-dressed man robbing a convenience store. "What kind of idiot films his own crimes? Isn't it cool?" Eri said. "Sure," Izuku lied. "His name is Gentle. He's really cool. He's a villain, but he doesn't hurt anyone or steal anything." Eri gushed. "Wait, what?" Izuku watched as in the video Gentle beat 2 pro heroes and proceeded to leave without taking anything. If he's not taking anything, then what's the point? Izuku was very confused. However, Eri was happy, so that was really all Izuku needed to know anyway. Eri frowned. "Izuku, you kill villains, right? Does that mean?" Izuku realized what she was insinuating and quickly shook his head. "I only kill killers, Eri. So long as he doesn't spill the blood of the innocent, he will be fine." Eri smiled and hugged Izuku. Izuku smiled and gave her a pat on the head. Meanwhile at UA, it was finally time. The class that all of Wano had been waiting for. The heroics class. "I am coming through the door like a normal person," cried All Might as he burst into the room in a very not normal way. The class was in awe at the sheer campiness that was All Might. "All right everyone, it's time for hero class," All Might said. "But first you'll need to change into these." Suddenly suitcases came out of the wall. "These are your hero costumes," All Might explained. "The number on the suitcases match your seating order, so get dressed." Plus ultra, cheered most of the class. About 15 minutes later, most of her class had already finished getting dressed and had met up with All Might in a surveillance room. Achako had already gotten in her skin-tight spacesuit-like costume and was waiting for her friend. Suddenly she heard Izuku's voice. "Sorry for the wait." Izuku walked in with her new costume. It was a green and black skin-tight jumper with a small jacket vest. Her hair was still in a ponytail and went over her shoulder. "Wow, you look great," Achako said. "You got that right," thought a certain purple-haired grape boy. "Yeah, I know," Izuku said, showing off her costume. "You look great too." Achako blushed. "I mean, I wasn't very specific when I made a request, so they just gave me a skin-tight costume." "Well, you look great," Izuku said. After all the students had gathered, All Might started explained that they would be sparring against each other in 2-on-2 fight between heroes and villains. The villains would be defending a bomb and the heroes would have to get past the villains and touch the bomb. Each team could also win if they managed to wrap their opponent in capture tape. However, only the heroes would be provided the capture tape. After that, All Might revealed the teams. Achako and Izuku had been paired up in the 2 high-five. All Might revealed that the matches would be determined randomly. "Sir," Ada said. Is it wise to leave this to chance? How else did you want us to decide? Pick and choose, Izuku said sarcastically. Villain attacks are often random and the heroes who are around just need to fight them. I see, Ida said before bowing. I apologize for interrupting. After that, they drew numbers to decide the first matchup. All Might pulled the 2 balls with the team numbers. Oh no, on the balls were the numbers for Team Izuku and Ochako and Team Bakugo and Ida. All Might considered just putting the balls back in and redoing it, however if he did it would draw suspicion from his student. Hesitantly, All Might announced the matchup. Team Izuku and Ochako as heroes versus Team Bakugo and Ida. Fuck, thought Bakugo. Bakugo looked at Izuku who was looking right back at him. However, her expression was not quite what Bakugo expected. It wasn't absolute fury or sadistic glee. Instead, she looked bored. This confused Bakugo greatly. Normally Izuku would relish the chance to beat the shit out of him, especially after what happened to Izuku. So why did she look so uninterested? Ochako looked between the two with a concerned expression. This is not going to end well, she thought to herself. Looked at all of them and had no idea what was going on. Later with Bakugo and Ida, Bakugo was perplexed. What was with that expression? Bakugo looked back and tried to think why Izuku looked like that. Bakugo, Ida said, snapping him out of his thoughts. We need to come up with a plan. Oh, sorry, Bakugo said. You and Midoriya seem to know each other. Do you happen to know anything about her quirk? Ida asked. Bakugo nodded. Yeah, her quirk is telekinesis. She can move things with her mind. The heavier the things she's lifting, the fewer objects she can lift. She can only move things she can see through, but she only needs to see part of something to lift it. That's why she has her ponytail over her shoulder. So long as she can see her ponytails, she can basically fly. Ida took in Bakugo's analysis. I see. Do you know how much she can lift with her quirk? Bakugo sighed. Not anymore. She suddenly got this boost in power. She used to only have been able to lift a small car a few feet off the ground, but now, I don't know. Ida pondered this information for a minute before turning back to Bakugo. I have a plan. With Izuku and Ochako. Izuku and Ochako stood outside the building, waiting for All Might to say they could enter. Suo, what's the plan? Ochako asked. Izuku shook her head dismissively. No need. All we have to do is find the bomb. Ida and Bakugo have no way to hide the bomb. Ochako sighed. Yeah, but how are we gonna get past Ida and Bakugo? You're strong and all, but they are pretty tough too. Izuku rolled her eyes. Come on, Bakugo's no threat. Like at all. And Ida's fast, but the small hallways limit how fast he can go without crashing into a wall. Ochako wanted to smash her head into the building. Yeah, but you never know if. Again, said All Might over the communicators. Izuku walked casually into the building as if there were no time limit. Ochako face-bombed. Well, on the bright side, if we lose it might knock her ego down a peg. Back in the monitor room, All Might sighed. He knew something like this would happen. After he got one for all, he went through the massive ego phase as well, and said ego caused his only loss to Endeavor back when he trained at UA. Funny enough, you think Endeavor would have been happy about that, but for some reason it made him get angrier. All Might didn't get that guy. All Might turned his attention back to the match. He told himself that he would be completely neutral and would not favor any sides. That did not stop him from rooting for Izuku inside his head. Back with Izuku and Ochako, the two girls had been walking through the building and had not seen a trace of their opponents. Izuku shook her head. You see, Ochako, we have nothing to fear. I bet you Bakugo is hiding somewhere like that. Boom. Suddenly a massive explosion shook the building, spreading dust and smoke everywhere. Ochako lost her footing and fell to the floor. What the heck? Izuku looked around frantically for Bakugo, who she knew had to be the cause of the explosion, but the smoke was hindering her view. Then she felt something crash into her at breakneck speed, sending both her and whatever hit her to the ground. When Izuku looked up, she saw Ida holding her capture tape. Izuku looked down to find not only had Ida taken her capture tape, but he also had already wrapped it around her waist. What? Thought Izuku. Then All Might's voice came on the communicator. Both Izuku and Ochako have been captured. The villain team wins. What the fuck just happened? With Ida and Bakugo 5 minutes ago. I have a plan, Ida said. Midoriya's quirk requires a line of sight, so our best plan of attack would be to ambush her. Can you create an explosion big enough to fill a floor with smoke? Bakugo looked at his gauntlet. Yeah, if we hit the side of building it should create enough smoke and kick up enough dust to keep Izuku from seeing anything. Good, Ida said. So you and I will wait for Midoriya and Uraraka on the floor below. Then when they come close you will create the explosion to block their view. Then I will charge at Midoriya, steal her capture tape and use it to eliminate her. After that, you use your quirk attack Uraraka and... No, Bakugo said, interrupting. I'm not using my quirk on her. Ida was shocked at this statement. But, I'm not using my quirk on her. Bakugo barked, looking at Ida with anger he had not felt in a while. The two were silent as the shock of Bakugo's sudden outburst set in. Sorry, Bakugo apologized. The impact of the explosion might knock her off her feet. If that happens, I'll take her tape and capture her. Ida paused for a moment before responding. I see. If that's the case, then it will be fine. Bakugo looked at his palms. Yeah, after his fight with Izuku, Bakugo figured out that whenever he used his quirk on another person, memories of Izuku would pop up. Had the entrance exam not been against robots, then he might not have got in. Begin, came the sound of All Might's voice over the communicators. Bakugo, we must get into position. Ida yelled as he ran out of the room. Back to the present. Everyone stood in the monitor room. Izuku was staring at the ground. After the match ended, she hadn't said a word. All Might looked at her, concerned, and made a mental note to speak to her later. So can anyone explain who was most instrumental in that battle? All Might asked. I believe it was Bakugo, sir, Momo said. Thanks to him, they were able to completely catch their opponent off guard and win the match before they could even come close to the bomb. I couldn't have said it better myself, All Might said. Bakugo looked back at Izuku, whose face was unreadable. He had a feeling that the walk back home would be more difficult than normal. After school, perhaps he had been too worried. Bakugo was almost at his house and there was no Izuku in sight. After the lesion, Izuku left in a hurry. She didn't even wait for Ochako. Perhaps he could get home without any. Whoosh! Suddenly Bakugo was hit hard on his side by an invisible force. Bakugo managed to stop himself before he hit the ground with his explosions. Landing on his feet, Bakugo looked around to see that Izuku had been standing in an alleyway, no doubt waiting for him. That was a fucking fluke, Izuku said. With those words, Izuku used her quirk to lift Bakugo into the air. If it weren't for Ada, you wouldn't have stood a chance against me, she screamed as she went to slam Bakugo into the ground. In response, Bakugo used a series of small explosions to slow his fall before landing back on his feet. Izuku growled before sending 2 trash cans flying at Bakugo. Bakugo blew them both up before they could hit him, creating a cloud of smoke in the process. Bakugo took a breath. He couldn't escape. The area was too open, and the second the smoke dissipated, she would be able to toss him around like a ragdoll. However, Izuku couldn't use her quirk forever. If she overused it, then she would start getting headaches until the pain made her pass out. He would have to push for that. Bakugo steeled himself. There was no ambush this time. So when the smoke dissipated, Bakugo looked his opponent in the eye and was hit with a wave of familiarity. The look in her eyes, the rage, it reminded him of himself. It reminded him of the rage and anger he felt whenever Izuku almost beat him in a fight. And that's when everything made sense. As Bakugo came to this realization, Izuku flung him against a wall. Bakugo hit the wall hard. Izuku, Bakugo yelled. Don't do this. Do what? Izuku asked, her voice filled with venom. Kick your ass. Bakugo ducked as Izuku sent another garbage can at him. One of the advantages Bakugo had was that Izuku did not really have a lot to throw at him without damaging the environment. Don't turn into a goddamn monster, Bakugo responded. Bakugo felt himself get thrown back as Izuku hit him with a blast of telekinetic force, knocking him to the ground. Monster, Izuku yelled, now even angrier than before. You of all people have no right to be calling anyone a monster. Bakugo picked himself up slowly. You're wrong. I have every right to scream monster ... when I'm looking at a mirror. There was a pause for a moment as Izuku processed those words and their meaning. Then her face twisted in rage and Bakugo knocked back down by a strong blast of telekinetic power. Gah! Cried Bakugo in pain. You and I are nothing alike. Izuku yelled at the top of her lungs. I am the future #1 hero. I am destined for greatness. You are a pathetic piece of shit. A useless monster. A pebble on the side of the road. Izuku froze. She and Bakugo had said that last part in perfect unison. I know, Bakugo said, pulling himself up once more. I used to think the same thing about Izuku. A look of horror crossed Izuku's face before quickly turning back to rage. You think you can compare yourself to me? Once again they said the exact same thing. The horrified look returned to Izuku's face. We are not the same. Izuku yelled, her tone carried underlying desperation, indicating she was telling this to herself as well as Bakugo. You're right, Bakugo said, walking closer to Izuku. I hurt people. I bullied people. I killed someone. You haven't done any of that ... yet. I see where this is going. You feel like you have to be the best. Like you have to be above everyone else ... And with that power boost you got, you started to believe you're the best. But when someone challenged you ... you felt like you had to put them in their place. That look you gave me back at you ... It was because you thought I was so weak after our fight the day before the entrance exam. Izuku's look of horror furthered. As Bakugo repeated her thought process back to her, she felt fear grip her. You haven't hurt anyone yet, Bakugo said, other than me, and I deserve it. But it doesn't stop at one person. I saw the looks you were giving to that Ada guy. Just stop. You are better than me ... So act like it. Please. At this point, it wasn't about the fight. Bakugo could care less if he got pounded into the ground. He said he was going to help people and now was a good place to start. Suddenly Bakugo was thrown back by another blast of invisible force, this one much weaker than the ones before but still enough to knock Bakugo on his ass. Izuku quickly turned the other way and ran, leaving Bakugo behind. Bakugo stayed there on the floor, hoping that his words got through. If only life were that easy. BLAM. A child's body fell to the floor. He had only wanted play around the docks. How would he have known that villains were making a deal in a warehouse that night? You shot him, one of the criminals shouted. Of course I fucking did, said the villain who shot the kid. He was a witness. He was a kid, one of the other villains exclaimed. Honestly, do you even have a soul? Interesting question. Let's find out. Every villain looked back at the entrance of the warehouse to find Ghost Rider standing there looking at the body of the child. Shit, it's Ghost Rider. One of them screamed. Run. All the villains ran toward the back door. One of them reached it and was about to open it when suddenly a ball of green fire blasted him, burning him alive and blocking the exit in a wall of flames. They all looked back fearful at Ghost Rider to find him still looking at the child's body with his hand outstretched. This ... was a child. The villains trembled in fear at his hellish voice and terrifying presence. One of the villains got on his knees and into a prayer position. What the hell are you doing? One of the other villains asked. Hoping there's a God, and that he forgives me, said the praying villain as tears poured from his eyes. The other villains decided he had gone nuts and that they should ignore him in favor of fighting for their lives. One of the villains used his quirk and made a sword out of the concrete floor below him and then charged at the flaming skeleton. The rest of the villains followed him and together 12 villains rushed Izuku. The sword-wielding villain closed in on Izuku and swung. Snap! Every villain froze as the villain's sword snapped in half against Izuku's skull. Before the sword villain could do anything, Izuku grabbed him by the mouth. This was a child. Suddenly the fire from Izuku's hand started burning the man's face. His screams were muffled by Izuku's bony hand as his face burned more and more until his face turned black and his skin charred off. His screams stopped as his flesh burned away, leaving only a skull. Izuku dropped the villain's body and the blood poured out of his burned neck stump. All the villains were frozen with fear, shock, and horror. You killed a child. All the villains looked at the villain who shot the child, still holding the gun in his hand. The villain quickly dropped the gun, but it was too late as the rest of the villains rushed him. The other 10 villains brought the child killer down to his knees in front of Izuku, hoping that with him dead he would spare them. You bastards. You think he'll spare you? You're all. The villain was interrupted by Izuku putting the barrel of his shotgun in his mouth. How ironic. You all are so willing to betray each other, yet you die together. Before the villains could react to that, Izuku pulled the trigger. Boom! A large explosion enveloped all the villains and much of the warehouse. When the explosion cleared, there were bodies everywhere. Burnt, broken, blown apart. Now all but one of the villains were dead. Izuku turned his skull toward the praying villain and walked up to him. Have you made your peace? The villain didn't look at him. Whether that be because he was focused on his prayer or because Izuku was too terrifying to look at was anyone's guess. Do you think I'll be forgiven? Izuku pointed his shotgun at the man. No, because I'm still here. Just as Izuku was about to pull the trigger, something wrapped around his gun and yanked it out of his hand. I don't really think that's for you to decide. Izuku looked to the catwalk above him to his left to find Eraserhead holding his gun. Izuku turned his head back to the villain. Perhaps God has forgiven you after all. God has nothing to do with it, Eraserhead said. We heard a gun being fired, most likely by whoever killed this child. I'm assuming it wasn't you. You're right. I came when I felt the blood of the innocent had been shed. It seems my work is done here. But ours isn't, Eraserhead retorted. Ours. Eraserhead activated his quirk. Headshot now. Headshot. Where is ... Oh. Izuku made the normally passive flames active. Suddenly Izuku saw a small thread quickly shot out of him and form into Headshot. JHHH. The hero screamed as his entire body was on fire. Izuku quickly used his powers and instantly put out the flames, leaving a barely conscious Headshot on his knees. It ... The ain't work ... He's ... Just bones ... And fire, Headshot said, taking in deep breaths. Eraserhead jumped down from the catwalk and helped stand Headshot up. I don't know what you were trying to accomplish, but you should probably get him to a hospital. The burns won't kill him, but they probably hurt like hell. Then again, I wouldn't know. He's the first person to be hit with my flames and not die. Izuku felt the blood of the innocent being spilled elsewhere. I'm going to have a busy night, so please don't bother me. Also, I'll be taking my gun back. Eraserhead looked at the gun. And what makes you think I'll give it back? Suddenly the gun fired and was blasted out of Eraserhead's capture tool. The gun then spun around, firing several more times before landing back in Izuku's hand. Without another word, Izuku summoned his bike, which emerged in a tornado of flames. Izuku hopped on and sped through the wall of the warehouse, leaving Eraserhead and Headshot in the dust. Meanwhile, in a shopping district, people were screaming as they tried to escape the scene. The villain Muscular had shown up and started attacking, and the only two heroes in the area were the Waterhouse duo. "Damn it, we're not making a dent," yelled Hasu Izumi to his wife. "We don't have to," responded Mizu Izumi to her husband. "We just have to hold him off until the people can escape." "Right," Hasu responded. The water hose duo had quirks that complement each other. Mizu's quirk allowed her to create water, and Hasu's quirk let him control water. Together they made a formidable duo. 2-on-1 huh? Good, twice the fun, said Muscular. Muscular charged at the two, but Hasu used the water on the floor to trip him up. "Whoa," cried Muscular as he fell. Hasu then the water underneath Muscular to carry the villain away from them. Muscular stopped himself by grabbing onto the ground and digging his fingers in. Muscular then launches himself at Hasu at speeds too fast for Hasu to react. Just as Muscular was reeling back his muscle fiber-enhanced fist, ready to hit Hasu, he was suddenly launched back by a highly pressurized jet of water made by Mizu. "Hasu now," Mizu yelled. Hasu knew what to do and used the water now covering Muscular's body to try and hold him in place. "Gah," Muscular cried as he struggled against the water on his body holding him in place. "It won't hold. He's too strong. We have to get out of here," Hasu said, doing his best to keep the villain in place. "Damn, not everyone has been evacuated yet," Mizu said. "If we leave, then he'll just kill all of them." "You got that right." It was at that point Muscular broke free of his bindings and charged at Hasu, ramming his fist into his torso, knocking him back into a building. "Hasu," Mizu shouted in horror. Mizu looked back at Muscular with an expression of pure rage. She launched a jet of water with all her strength, pushing Muscular back slowly. In response, Muscular used his quirk and enhanced his legs with his muscle fibers. Slowly he pushed on against the force of the water, coming closer and closer to Mizu. As Muscular pushed on, Mizu's jet of water grew weaker as Mizu was unable to keep up the water pressure. Soon Muscular got close to Mizu and he grabbed her by the head and threw her down onto the street. Snap! A silent scream emanated from Mizu as the wind was knocked out of her and her spine snapped in half. Muscular punched the downed hero again and again until at the third punch his fist was blocked by barrier of water. "Leave her alone, you son of a bitch." Muscular looked behind him to see an injured Hasu standing behind him. Muscular turned around and went to punch Hasu, but was blocked by another water barrier. But it couldn't hold up forever, as after 3 punches his fist went through the barrier, hitting Hasu in the face. Hasu fell to the floor and Muscular punched him several more times until Hasu was bleeding, barely conscious mess. Muscular grinned. He stopped punching Hasu and moved to unconscious Mizu. He picked up her limp, broken body and tossed it next to Hasu. "You know, you two weren't half bad. Tell you what, as a reward for showing me a good time, you two can die together. How about that?" Muscular said, standing over them. Hasu spits in his eye. "Ugh, really? Was that a HHH?" Muscular held his eye as Hasu used his quirk to drive the spit into his eye. After a couple of seconds, Hasu lost control of the spit due to the pain he was feeling, and Muscular uncovered his eye, revealing a bleeding hole where his eye once was. "You know what?" Muscular said, increasing the number of muscle fibers in his arm. "Fair enough." Muscular cocked his arm back and was ready to kill the two of them. Hasu looked at his wife and said, "I love you." Hasu closed his eyes and readied himself for death. "I'm sorry, Koda." Muscular swung, but the pain never came. At least not for Hasu. "JHHH," Muscular cried. Hasu opened his eyes to see a chain was wrapped around Muscular's enormous arm. "Get over here." Muscular was thrown into the air and landed right at the feet of Ghost Rider. Before Muscular could react, Izuku kicked him into a building. Not wasting a second, Izuku sent a ball of fire at the building Muscular was knocked into, causing it to explode. Izuku knew he wasn't dead, but he had more pressing matters. Izuku ran over to the water hose duo and placed his hands over Mizu's wounds. Mizu grunted in pain as Izuku burned the injured parts of her body. "He's cauterizing the wounds," Hasu realized. After closing her wounds, Izuku went to do the same thing to Hasu, but suddenly his head was grabbed by Muscular. "Damn it, I stopped paying attention," Izuku thought. Normally Izuku could sense whoever had spilled the blood of the innocent. However, if he was focused on something else, he could momentarily not be able to sense them. However, the moment he remembered them, he would be able to track them. Muscular tried to crush Izuku's skull, but to avail, and Izuku increased the power of his head flames and turned into a geyser of fire. "Gah!" Muscular let go of Izuku and looked in his burnt hand. "Huh, looks like you're pretty strong." Muscular grinned. "Guess I'll have to go all out." Muscular fully powered his arms. "Let's do this." Muscular charged at Izuku and tried to punch him, only for Izuku to grab his fist. Izuku spun him around and threw him into the air. Muscular landed on a car and Izuku took this time to summon his motorcycle. Izuku attached one end of his chain to his motorcycle. Muscular had recovered and attempted to shoulder tackle Izuku, but Izuku used his other hand to pull out his shotgun and shot him in the face. Boom! JHHH! Muscular yelled. His face was now burnt and partially melted, and his other eye had been destroyed. Izuku took his chain and threw it, the stunned Muscular, wrapping it around his left arm. Izuku then grabbed his other arm and used his powers to activate his motorcycle. His motorcycle started pulling on Muscular's arm, but he didn't move because Izuku was holding onto his other arms. Fiber by fiber, Muscular felt his arms being ripped apart as he screamed in pain. After a few seconds, blood started leaking from between the muscle fibers as the base of his arms were being torn from his body. But both his arms were completely severed from his body as the motorcycle and Izuku both carried one of Muscular's arms. AHHH. Muscular screamed as he felt the most agonizing pain he had ever felt in his life. His screams were halted as Izuku hit him with his own arm, knocking him onto the floor. Unable to get up due to the lack of arms, Muscular could do nothing but bleed as Izuku beat him with his own massive arm. THWOMP. 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 Squish. After the fourth hit, Muscular's head was crushed and his blood, broken bits of his bones and pieces of his brain splattered onto the street. Izuku looked at his work for a moment. Muscular's headless, armless body leaking blood from all 3 new holes Izuku had created on his body. Izuku turned back to the Waterhouse duo and ran towards them. Mizu was still unconscious and Hasu was barely hanging on. He was bleeding far too much. Will she be all right? Hasu asked. Yes, you need to. It's too late. Hasu interrupted. Izuku knew he was right. Even if he opened a portal, they wouldn't be able to save him. He had lost too much blood. I'm sorry. Don't be. You saved my wife and killed that bastard. I can't thank you enough, Hasu said. Izuku could see the life in his eyes start to leave him. You were a great hero. I'm sure you will be honored after your death for all the people whose lives you saved today. Hasu smiled and closed his eyes. You're ... not as bad as they say you were on the news. Thank you ... for everything, Ghost Rider. And with those last words, he passed. Izuku lowered his head. Another person he could not save tonight. Izuku looked at the still alive Mizu next to him and picked her up. Izuku took out his chain and used it to open a portal into a hospital. The hospital staff panicked both at the vigilante and at the injured hero he was holding. Izuku walked up to the desk. Get her help. Now, not wanting to see what would happen if they didn't, the staff of the hospital worked as fast as they could and got Mizu onto a stretcher. After that, Izuku left back through the portal and gave them Hasu's dead body. Izuku went on the other side of the portal and closed it. He hopped on his bike and made a portal home. But before he left, he needed to do one thing. The cops and other heroes who had been evacuating the people while the water hose duo fought Muscular would soon descend upon the scene, so Izuku had to be quick. He took out his shotgun, aimed it at Muscular's mutilated body, and said, "Fuck you." Boom. Bits of flesh, bone, and blood now rained down onto the streets as Muscular was reduced to pieces. After that, Izuku put his shotgun onto his back and left through the portal. Izuku's base. When Izuku got home, Eri was already there waiting for him. Welcome, ho. She stopped when Izuku transformed back into his human form and tears were already going down his face. He kneeled down as the weight of his perceived failure brought him to his knee. Eri hugged him immediately and Izuku cried for the next hour. The worst part about being the spirit of vengeance is that you can only show up after blood has been spilled. Never before. Later that night, Izuku and Eri were watching the news when the topic switched to what Izuku needed to hear but at the same time didn't want to see. Breaking news. The newswoman said, "Tonight a tragedy occurred as the villain Nona Muscular attacked a local shopping district and the only heroes who were suitable to fight him off were the water hose duo, Hasu, and Mizu Izumi. Unfortunately, Muscular was too strong for the duo, and the two were almost killed by the villain. Fortunately, Ghost Rider showed up and killed Muscular while also saving the life of one of Mizu Izumi. Unfortunately, Hasu Izumi had passed by the time Ghost Rider, who according to the hospital staff is able to open portals, brought him in. Mizu Izumi sustained injuries to her spine and is paralyzed by the waist down and as such will be retiring from hero work. Our hearts and minds go out to Mizu and her family." Phew. Eri turned off the TV because Izuku was already crying. This happened from time to time. Izuku would come home crying from being unable to save someone. He would turn on the news until he found someone talking about it and then he would cry. Eri hated it. She hated being unable to help her brother. She hated being powerless again. What's worse is that Izuku would cope with this by spoiling the heck out of her for the next few days, and Eri hated it. "Let's go to bed," Eri said. A week later, Hasu's funeral was held in secret, with the only people that attended being Mizu in her wheelchair, Kota his son, and the Wild Pussycats because one of their members, Manole, was the cousin of Mizu. What they didn't know was that Izuku was there performing his usual tactic of hiding behind a tree. Eri was also there as well because she refused to let Izuku go alone. The public had been given a false date for the funeral so that way his family could mourn in peace. Fortunately for Izuku, a few villains had figured out the real date and were going to ambush them. Izuku showed them exactly what he thought of that idea, and the police were currently searching for what was left of their leader. Izuku looked sadly at the scene of Hasu's family mourning his death. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Izuku thought as more tears went down his cheeks. After everyone said their piece, all the officials left the family in peace. I still don't get why you won't talk to them, Eri said. Because I'm not really supposed to be here, Izuku whispered. Well, you got that right. Izuku panicked and activated his transformation instinctively and went skull to face with Ragdoll. I forgot about her quirk. Ragdoll jumped back and all the other attendants looked at what was going on. Ghost Rider. Almost all of them yelled. Immediately Mandalay got in front of her cousin in a defensive position and the rest of the wild pussycats got ready to fight. No one moved. Izuku didn't want to fight and the pussycats didn't think they could take Ghost Rider in a fight, so they just stood there looking at each other. Wait, Mizu yelled. Everyone looked at her and Mizu moved her wheelchair towards Ghost Rider. Mandalay panicked. Mizu, what are you? Mizu raised her hand signaling Mandalay to stop before turning her attention back to Ghost Rider. I doubt you would save my life just to kill me later, Mizu said. So ... why are you here? Izuku looked down. No one could read his expression seeing as his head was a skull. I wanted to pay my respects ... and apologize. For what? Mizu asked. For not saving him. Mizu sighed at this. Many heroes who were in the area evacuating citizens apologized that they didn't help the two in fighting Muscular. Yes, Ghost Rider is more compassionate than people think, Mizu thought. Mizu decided to say to him what she said to all these heroes. It's fine. You did what you could. But I didn't. Everyone flinched at the hellish scream Ghost Rider gave off but were shocked as Ghost Rider fell to his knees and transformed into his human state, no longer being able to keep the feeling required to stay in his Ghost Rider form. Tears slid down Izuku's eyes as everyone looked right at him. His hood was up so no one could see his face, but everyone there could tell ... this was a child. He's a kid, Tiger asked in confusion. He can't be any older than 15. Pixie Bob gasped. I could have saved him, Izuku revealed. If I had used my portals, then I would have been able to kill Muscular in time to save him. I didn't want to show anyone that power and I thought my bike would be fast enough. But there were too many civilians in the way and I couldn't get through. By the time I got there, you two were already bleeding out. I tried to stop the bleeding, but I could only help you because I wasn't paying attention and let Muscular get the jump on me. Then I took too long killing him and wasn't able to stop his bleeding. I made so many mistakes ... and because of those mistakes, your husband died. I am so sorry. Everyone looked at him with looks of pity. This poor kid put too much pressure on himself, Mandalay thought to herself. Mizu went up to the kid until she was right in front of him. Izuku looked up at her, making his face visible to only her. You're a child. It doesn't matter what kind of power you have. You will still make mistakes, Mizu said. And you were still able to save my life and let me see my son again. For that, I can't thank you enough. But I'm not just a kid. Izuku yelled, his frustrations finally coming out. I am the spirit of vengeance. The only reason I got these powers was to save people. So why can't I save anyone? All the pussycats gave him shocked looks, but Mizu just shook her head. You saved me. And you've saved others too. As a hero, I know what it feels like when you fail and someone dies. But you have to remember that you have saved people. Izuku didn't have anything to say to that, so he just cried and Mizu gently rubbed his head. After a minute, Izuku regained his composure and stood up. Sorry about that, he said. Thank you for your time and sorry for interrupting. Eri, let's. Izuku looked around, but Eri was nowhere to be found. Eri, Izuku sighed, wondering where she could have gone. Who's Eri? Pixie Bob asked. Was she that little girl you brought with you? Ragdoll asked. Yes. Where is she? Izuku asked. She's with Koda, Ragdoll answered. Everyone looked around to see that Koda had also at some point disappeared. When did he leave? Mandalay asked. Just before Ghost Rider showed up. Oh look, they're coming back, Ragdoll said, pointing to the right. Everyone looked to see Eri and Koda coming towards them. Eri pulling Koda by his hand. Izuku's eyes widened. She's touching him. Eri normally didn't like being around other people, let alone making physical contact with them. The two came up to the adults and Izuku. His big brother made a friend, Eri yelled, pointing at Koda. Izuku sighed in relief as it seemed Eri figured out not to call him his real name in front of several pro heroes. You have a sister? Tiger asked. Yes, Izuku answered, trying not to be too detailed. Eri, we have to go. Eri frowned. Okay. She let go of Koda and went to Izuku's side and waved to Koda. Bye. Bye, Koda said shyly. Wait, Pixie Bob shouted. We just can't let you go. Mandalay gave an "Are you serious" look. None of us can beat him, and do you really want to start a fight in a graveyard? Pixie Bob groaned, knowing she was right, before turning to Izuku. Kid, you have to stop. Turn yourself in. We can help you. Izuku gave her a sad look. I'm sorry. I can't stop. I don't have a choice. With that, Izuku opened a portal back to his base and Eri jumped through it. Just before Izuku was about to leave, he felt Mizu's arm stop him. Wait, she said before making the gesture to lean down. Izuku did so and Mizu whispered in his ear. Are you sure? He asked. Mizu nodded. please. Okay, Izuku said before walking through the portal and closing it behind him. What did you say to him? Mandalay asked her cousin. If I wanted you to hear that I wouldn't have whispered, Mizu responded. Mandalay frowned. Mizu, we need to help catch this kid so we can help him. He's clearly suffering. And putting him in a jail cell helps him how? Mizu asked sarcastically. They're not gonna stuff him in a jail cell, especially if he's not doing this of his own free will. Mandalay argued. He said he didn't have a choice, that he couldn't stop. It sounds like there is more to this than meets the eye. Pixie Bob said. Maybe, Mizu responded. I'll find out soon. Ghost Rider, you saved my life and let me see Kota again. I promise I will help you. So would you mind explaining what happened after you encountered Ghost Rider? Woof, said the police chief to Eraserhead and Deadshot. The Ghost Rider task force had gathered in a police meeting room with a projector and a blackboard. Along with the police chief and the two heroes that had fought Ghost Rider were Endeavor, Mount Lady, Death Arms, Backdraft, Best Jeanist, and Night Eye. Deadshot was still covered in bandages due to all the burns. From what we can tell, some villains were performing some sort of illegal transaction at a warehouse on the docks when a child showed up and was shot by one of the villains, Eraserhead explained. Tusk, what scum? Death Arms said, clenching his fist in rage. Yeah, honestly I'm tempted to high-five Ghost Rider for killing these guys, Mount Lady remarked. Yeah, and while we're at it might as well wait a few days so we can congratulate him on his triple-digit murder count too, Eraserhead said sarcastically. The police chief said. Back to the report. Right. Anyway, so when I showed up, Ghost Rider had already killed all but one of the villains. Eraserhead continued. Yes, the survivor. Endeavor interrupted. Ghost Rider has never left a villain alive up until now. So the question is, what's so special about him? From what we can tell, the villain has no association with Ghost Rider. Woof, the police chief said. When we interrogated him, all he said was thank the Lord. I have been forgiven. That actually matches up with what happened at the warehouse, Eraserhead said. Explain. Woof, said the police chief. Eraserhead nodded. When I got there, the villain seemed to be praying, and when I stopped Ghost Rider from killing him, he said that the man was forgiven. So he's religious. Night Eye pondered. That's somewhat humorous considering he looks like something that crawled out of hell. So perhaps he kills for religious reasons? Best Jeanist questioned. Maybe. But the most important part of that night was what Deadshot and I discovered about him. Eraserhead said. He's a skeleton, Deadshot said. Everyone gave him a strange look. Yeah, we noticed, Mount Lady said. Kind of hard not to. No, I don't mean he looks like a skeleton. I mean he is nothing but fire and a skeleton. Deadshot clarified. We all thought that he was using some sort of illusion quirk or that he had his organs in a different place than normal people would, but no. He is nothing but a human skeleton. No eyes, no lungs, no heart, no muscles. Just bones and fire. This time everyone was giving him strange looks for completely different reasons. That's impossible, Night Eye said. Yeah, you kinda need organs to live. Also, how would he move without muscles? Death Arms asked. Yes, and how does he see without eyes or hear with no ears? Best Jeanist asked. I don't know, Deadshot said. Everything about his physiology is impossible. Even his flames don't make any sense. Reports stated that Ghost Rider can control when his flames burn. This is true, as when I hopped into him the flames didn't hurt me at all. However, when Eraserhead signaled me to take him down, he figured out my location and burned me. Also, his flames have no source. They just seem to come out him rising from his feet. Maybe Ghost Rider is just a puppet or something, Backdraft said. Maybe he's some kind of robot or something that's being controlled by someone else's quirk. Eraserhead shook his head. No, firstly, there is no material on Earth that is strong enough to allow for a robot to do the things Ghost Rider did. Secondly, I used my quirk on him, which would have stopped any signals coming from someone else's quirk. This also rules out the possibility of this being a transformation quirk, meaning that he always looks like this. Well, that's not true. Everyone looked at the door to find the wild pussycats in uniform. Lock on with. What do you mean that's not true? Eraserhead asked, no caring about their intro. Hey, Pixie Bob said. We were in the middle of our new intro. Yeah, we worked super hard on it. Ragdoll said. Yeah, I'm sure the news will love it now, explain. Eraserhead said, having none of their nonsense. Pixie Bob pouted. How rude. And after we came all the way here with a bunch of juicy info. Mandalay shook her head. No, he's right. We have to get to work helping this kid. Eraserhead raised an eyebrow. Kid, it will be best if I just tell you the whole story, Mandalay said. There is a lot to unpack, trust me. Proceed. Woof, the police chief said. Mandalay nodded and cleared her throat. When we were with my cousin at her husband's funeral, Ragdoll noticed someone hiding behind a tree. This turned out to be Ghost Rider. Why would Ghost Rider come to a funeral? Night Eye asked. Was there a criminal around? Mandalay shook her head. No. At first, we were defensive, but no one attacked. We knew we couldn't beat him, and lucky for us he wasn't there for a fight. Mizu asked him what he was doing there. Then he broke down. Then Endeavor repeated. For what reason? He was distraught about not being able to save Mizu's husband. Mandalay clarified. He seemed to blame himself for not showing up faster, so he does care about saving people. Best Jeanist said. Mandalay nodded. Very much so. He was so upset he accidentally transformed back into what is most likely his real form ... and he was just a kid. No older than maybe 15. This information spread shock around the entire room as Mandalay had just told them that the villain with a body count that would be entering the triple digits and that they had seemingly no way of stopping other than All Might ... was a child. That ... isn't funny, Night Eye said looking down. You think? Eraserhead shouted. That's impossible. My quirk would have deactivated his quirk if it was transformation based. It must have been some kid with a shape-shifting quirk or something. Mandalay shook her head sadly. No, later he made a portal that was identical to the one the hospital staff said Ghost Rider made. This was him. That's fucked up, Mount Lady said with a horrified look on her face. She didn't particularly adore children, but for a kid to be going around doing ... this was just wrong. The police chief looked away. There had been a few child villains in his time. Each and every one of them made him wish he had any other job but this one. Because a child villain was always a tragedy. Not to mention he doesn't seem too happy about what he's doing either, Pixie Bob said. He said he got these powers to save people and later he said he couldn't stop. That he didn't have a choice, meaning someone is forcing him to kill, Eraserhead said through clenched teeth. This information sunk in and everyone in the room felt anger fill them at the thought of a young boy being forced to commit such heinous acts. Death Arms smashed one of the desks. Damn it, is there anything that could lead us to his location? Eraserhead asked the pussycats desperately. Did you see his face? Anything we could use to identify him? No, Mandalay said sadly. He was wearing a hood that kept us from seeing his face. But there was one more thing, Tiger said. There was a little girl with him. His little sister. Everyone looked at Tiger. Did you see what she looked like? Night Eye asked. If so, we may be able to find him by looking for her. Yes, Tiger confirmed. She had white hair, red eyes, and a horn sticking out of her forehead. She looked to be around 8, maybe younger. Night Eye's eyes widened. I can't be. Eraserhead noticed Night Eye's expression. You know something, Night Eye? Yes, Night Eye said. While I was investigating the Yakuza, I had once seen a girl that Overhaul claimed to be his daughter after she had run into Mirio. She looked exactly like who you just described. And Ghost Rider was the one who killed Overhaul and destroyed the Yakuza. Best Jeanist said. So what you're saying is that whoever is forcing Ghost Rider to do what he does also took this girl. Ed Shot said. She didn't seem to very upset though, Pixie Bob informed. She called him Big Brother and seemed to be in high spirits. And when Ghost Rider said it was time to go, she only seemed upset because she made friends with Koda. To be fair, I doubt Overhaul was what one would call a good parent, Night Eye interjected. For all we know, she might be grateful for Ghost Rider killing her father. Mount Lady shivered. This just keeps getting worse. Eraserhead sighed. I'm going to need all the alcohol I can get tonight. Is there any more information you gathered from that encounter? Woof, the police chief asked. Well, he called himself the Spirit of Vengeance, Mandalay said. Also, while he didn't seem to love the idea of killing, he also didn't seem to hate it. It was like he was used to it. Also, his portals interfere with my quirk, Ragdoll said. Once he stepped through it, I couldn't sense him. And that's it, Pixie Bob said. Eraserhead sighed. So, we are dealing with a possibly insane child with a quirk no one fully understands and that defies all logic and is insanely powerful with seemingly no limit, who is being forced by either another person or his quirk to commit acts of murder on villains. Also, he has the daughter of Overhaul who appears to be very happy that her father is dead. And what we don't know is his identity, where he's hiding, the full extent of his quirk and how his quirk even works. Don't forget the fact that he can open portals, making it even more impossible to trap him. Death Arms groans. Enough, Endeavor says. You're all acting like this is an impossible scenario. I mean, it sounds pretty impossible me. Why? Lady muttered. The flame hero ignored her. He is a child, meaning he is prone to act rashly. When we figure out how he finds these criminals is when we can strike. Eraserhead rolled his eyes. And I'm sure you're not just saying this so we don't call All Might. Endeavor glared at him. We don't need All Might. The police chief intervened. All Might has a lot on his plate. Woof. Only when we're sure we can't handle this will we call All Might. Woof. Eraserhead knew why this was. He knew that All Might was running on fumes and had to deal with teaching, hero work, and apparently raising a teenager. Of course, this didn't want to make him smash his head into the wall any less. We're fucked. Later at Night Eye's agency, Night Eye smashed his head against his desk. When Night Eye found that the Yakuza, the villainous organization he had been watching and trying to take down for years now, was suddenly and unceremoniously destroyed by some random vigilante, he almost wanted to laugh at the sheer irony of the situation. What was not so funny and was, in fact, the thing that kept him from laughing was the fact that a powerful and lethal vigilante was now on the streets. His vigilante status was then upgraded to villain due to the sheer amount of people he'd killed. so Night Eye decided to investigate Ghost Rider. But to little avail. Ghost Rider left no evidence to his true identity or his location. He had tried looking for patterns in the locations he appeared or a part of the city with high Ghost Rider sighting. But once they figured out he could make portals, he'd given up these methods. He had looked through whatever footage there was available of Skeleton, tried to discover any weakness, any point in which his quirk showed its flaw. But he found nothing. And from the feats he has shown, he was not even fully sure if All Might could beat him in his current state. Night Eye sighed. He knew what needed to happen. He needed to go to All Might and he needed to convince him to give Mirio one for all. If not, then who knows what may happen. Later with Izuku. Splat. About 3 minutes ago a villain had started attacking an office building. He had used his quirk and managed to kill 2 people. Then a portal opened and Ghost Rider came out with his motorcycle and ran him over. Izuku looked back at the mess of flaming remains of the villain. Well, that was fast. Izuku thought to himself. I guess I'll just go home then. I'm sure he will. Stop right there. That voice. Izuku recognized it immediately. All Might. Izuku looked to his left and found that All Might was indeed standing there in the hole the villain had made in the building. It's time you and I had a talk. All Might said. As much as an honor that would be, I have a feeling it would end with me going to jail, so I'll have to pass. Izuku said. I'm afraid that I wasn't asking. All Might responded. To say Izuku was nervous would be an understatement. First of all, he was meeting his favorite hero. Again, too, his favorite hero was trying to arrest him, which brought him to his next reason to be nervous. He would have to fight All Might. Or not, Izuku thought. If we were to fight in here, then the civilians would be killed in the crossfire. If I play my cards right, then I can escape. You know, if we fight, then the collateral damage will kill everyone around us. I don't want that to happen, and I know you don't either, Izuku said. All Might shook his head. I'm not here to fight. I know you're scared. I know you feel like you don't have a choice. But there is a way out. You don't have to be like your father. What is he talking about? My father. What is he ... Wait. Hawks told me All Might in the last Spirit of Vengeance fought against All for One together. We must look so alike that he thinks we're related. I think I found my way out. You're mistaken. The person who you fought All for One with was not my father. He was my predecessor, Izuku explained. All Might looked stunned. What? Izuku took this opportunity and rocketed past All Might while he was distracted, falling out of the office building and onto the street below. Damn it, All Might said before giving chase. All Might and Izuku raced at extremely high speeds on the streets, each of them avoiding the cars and civilians in their path. He can't keep this up forever. I just need to hope he already used up most of his time limit, Izuku thought to himself. He was faster than All Might, but All Might had the advantage in being able to move around freely while Izuku had a huge bike he had to maneuver around. Unfortunately, Izuku would soon be coming face to face with his worst enemy, traffic. Coming up was a gridlock of cars which had no space for Izuku to maneuver through. Nope, not this time. Izuku took his chain and threw it at the side of one of the building, and in one fluid motion he yanked himself onto that building and started driving on the sides of the buildings. What the? All Might thought as he saw this. He had to do something, otherwise he would lose him. Thinking fast, All Might jumped onto the roof of the opposite building and ran across the rooftop, still chasing Izuku. You are just as amazing as always, All Might. Izuku fanboyed in his head. And I'm really sorry about this. Izuku aimed his hand at All Might and shot a fireball at the hero. All Might dodged and barely managed to keep his footing. Damn it. He can shoot me all he wants without hurting anyone, but I can't hit him back without hitting the building. Izuku launched several more attacks and All Might felt himself get weaker. Steam started coming off of him. My time is running out. I missed my chance to catch him the second I let myself get distracted. You win this round, Ghost Rider. But next time I will catch you. With that, All Might gave up the chase. Izuku let out a sigh of relief. Finally, Izuku rode upwards onto the roof of the building. Time to go home. Izuku pulled out his chain and made a portal before riding through it and into his workroom. He transformed back into his human form and let himself collapse onto his handlebars. If it were not for the fact that he had no heart in his Ghost Rider form, Izuku was almost certain he would have passed out from how nervous he was. I just beat All Might in a race, Izuku thought to himself in amazement. He had the biggest smile on his face as he sat back up. Only in his wildest dreams did Izuku ever picture himself being faster than All Might. Beep beep beep. Izuku looked at his watch. Oh right, it's time to meet with Mizu. Izuku hated the idea of keeping people waiting, so he pulled out his chain and made another portal. Eri, he yelled. A few seconds passed before Eri came running through the door. Yes, she said, looking at him curiously. Izuku smiled. We're gonna go see Koda at Mizu's house. Mizu liked to consider herself a nice person. As a hero, she did whatever she could to help people, and she almost laid her life down to save the civilians in the fight with Muscular. So it may be surprising that she actually didn't mind Ghost Rider all too much. Sure, at first she thought he was dangerous, but after he had shown that he was only interested in killing villains, she had actually come to appreciate him a little. It wasn't like he was killing purse snatchers or jaywalkers. It was all murderers. And to be honest, Mizu didn't care all too much if they were dead so long as they were off the streets. Maybe it was because she was a mother and the thought of someone like Muscular coming close to her son ... It made her very glad that the bastard was dead. Her opinion of him only elevated after he saved her life. When she was in front of her husband's grave while looking down at her crying son, she had wondered what exactly would it be like for Koda if she too had died. After that though, she was sure she would have quit even if her legs still worked. And she held deep gratitude towards Ghost Rider, not just for saving her life, but for making sure Koda wasn't alone. Then he had shown up at her husband's funeral in a state no one had seen him in before. Emotional, weak, vulnerable. Mizu had to help him. She would never be able to forgive herself if she did nothing while the child who had done so much for suffer. And unlike her cousin, she knew damn well that the best way to help him was not to get him arrested. It was very rare that villains got any sympathy. And with how dangerous he was, Mizu knew that the most likely outcome of him being arrested was him getting thrown in Tartarus for the rest of his life. He should be showing up any time now, she thought to herself as she sipped some tea. The house was a modest one, with 2 floors, the upper on only containing 2 bedrooms and a guest room and a bathroom, and the lower floor consisting of a kitchen and a living room. Mizu was currently in the living room on her couch sipping the tea on the table in front of her. Whoosh. Mizu turned her head to see a ring of fire forming behind her. The ring turned into a portal and out stepped Izuku wearing his hood and Eri, who was vibrating with excitement and holding a basket of apples. Koda apparently heard the sound too as he came down the stairs from his room. Eri, Koda, Eri yelled as she ran up to him taking his hand. Let's play. Ooh, okay, Koda said, not sure what was happening. Koda took Eri upstairs to his room and the two started playing whatever games were available. Izuku and Mizu smiled at this before looking back at each other. As so, Izuku said awkwardly. He didn't really know why Mizu had asked to meet with him and he was kind of nervous that this was a trap and All Might or Endeavor would spring out at any moment. But at the same time, Izuku was all but certain that anyone other than All Might was no threat to him. After all, when you beat a dude the size of a skyscraper with nothing but a chain, a motorcycle, and shotgun, you tend to feel pretty invincible. Plus, it's not like he could just say no. Not after failing to save her husband. You don't have to wear the hood, Mizu said. I saw your face back at the graveyard. Izuku was struck by panic. What? You don't need to worry, Mizu reassured. I won't tell anyone. I don't plan on helping anyone catch you. Trust me. Izuku looked at her for a moment before closing his eyes. After about a minute had passed, Izuku opened his eyes again and slowly took down his hood. All right, I believe you, Izuku said. Mizu smiled. Well then, let's talk. Meanwhile, at All Might's house, All Might walked into his house before immediately crashing onto the couch. If only I hadn't used so much time ... and oh, even if I had more time he would have lost me eventually. When All Might first saw Ghost Rider on the news he was in shock. It was impossible. He had seen him die all that time ago. How could he be here? Then he noticed differences between Ghost Rider and the so-called spirit of vengeance he had met back then. The most notable difference being the color of his flames. They had been orange back then as opposed to green. The second difference was that he was smaller. It was hard to notice seeing as he was a skeleton, but when All Might came face to skull with him he could tell he was shorter and his bones were smaller. Lastly he was weaker. If All Might was in his prime then he would have caught up to him no problem, but back then All Might remembered the two of them being about the same in terms of strength and speed. So All Might came to the conclusion that this was not the same man. However, the similarities between the two were far too striking for them not to be related. And given that he was smaller and weaker than the man he met, All Might deduced that he must be that man's son. It had seemed like sound logic. Then today happened. When Ghost Rider revealed that he was that man's successor, many thoughts flew through his head. Does he have a quirk that's able to be passed down too? Is that why he has so many powers? How did that man pass on his power if All Might saw him die? Why was he only showing himself now? And now here he was, with more questions than answers, and no Ghost Rider to answer them. I really have hit rock bottom, All Might thought to himself. First I end up killing a kid, and now I can't even do my job as a hero right. Ding dong. All Might sighed as he got up and walked to the door. Must be Izuku, he thought. All Might opened the door ... and immediately was paralyzed with fear, because standing on the other side of his doorway was his former sidekick, Sir Night-Eye. Hello, Tashinori, he said. It's been a long time. And Night-Eye. All Might yelped in alarm. What are you doing here? All Might would have sooner expected All for One to come knocking than his former sidekick. All these years the two had been avoiding each other, so to say All Might was shocked when he just showed up at his front door out of the blue would be an understatement. Ghost Rider, Night-Eye said, looking away from All Might. He needs to be stopped. Yeah, All Might said in a confused tone. He didn't really know what to say, this was all so sudden. Have you heard of Mirio Tagata? Night-Eye asked. All Might nodded. Yes, I've heard that he is an excellent student who is considered to be number one even amongst pros. Well, except for me. Have you met him? Night Eye asked. No, All Might answered. We have yet to meet in person. I've heard that he has been working with you. Night Eye nodded. Correct. Tell me, have you considered him as a possible successor? All Might nodded. I have. From what I've read and seen of him, he sounds like he would be perfect. Bright personality, comforting presence, unflinching determination, and he is already plenty powerful. Well, then you'll understand when I say ... you need to give one for all to Mirio, Night Eye said. Ghost Rider is seemingly unstoppable, and I'm not even sure you can beat him. Mirio is our only surefire way to take down Ghost Rider. All Might thought back to his battle against All for One, specifically about his ally in that fight demand that resembled Ghost Rider. In the state All Might was in now, he was sure he would lose easily to that man. And even though Ghost Rider was weaker than his predecessor, he still might be strong enough to beat him in his current state. And that's assuming that he's not holding back. All Might knew that if anyone was going to beat Ghost Rider, it would have to be his successor, and Izuku was not anywhere close to being ready. But Mirio sounded like if he got one for all, he could take in Ghost Rider right now. But could I really give up on Izuku? All Might pondered, and then suddenly the face of Izuku Midoriya flashed in his mind. The boy he killed. Suddenly All Might felt the crushing weight of his own guilt, and any consideration of Night Eye's proposal flew out the window. I'm sorry, Night Eye, but I already have a successor. All Might said, his head hanging low. Night Eye's eyes widened, and for a moment he looked at All Might before immediately looking away again. Who? Night Eye asked. Izuku Midoriya. All Might answered. She's a first year at UA. She lives here, but she's out right now. A first year? Night Eye shouted. A first year cannot take down Ghost Rider. I need you to look at the bigger picture here. I'm not just going to give up on her. All Might said. I've made my decision. But why can't you just have her give the quirk to Mirio and then he can give it back? Night Eye asked. All Might shook his head once more. One for all does not work like that. Once you pass down one for all, you can't get it back. It's like trying to reignite a used match. Night Eye shot All Might a frustrated look. But, no buts. All Might cut him off. The decision is final. Night Eye looked at All Might for the first time during the conversation. He stared down the number one hero, although he made sure to avoid looking him in the eye. Perhaps I should enlighten you with some facts that were discovered in a recent meeting concerning Ghost Rider. Did you know that he is a child? There was a pause as the information sunk in. What? All Might asked in a quiet voice. He's a child, Night Eye repeated aggressively. From what the Pussycats said, he is most likely not any older than your successor. Not only that, but we have reason to believe that he may not be killing people of his own free will. And we also have confirmation that after he destroyed the Yakuza, he took in the daughter of their leader, who is most likely not even in the double digits in terms of age. To reiterate, there is a child who is being forced to slaughter villains by someone or something, possibly his own quirk, and is keeping a young girl in an unknown location. Do you understand the gravity of the situation now? All Might was silent. Night Eye looked at the number one hero harshly and was about to say something when All Might spoke. I'll do it, he said. Night Eye was taken aback. Had he done it? Had he finally been able to get his hero to look at things logically? Unless, All Might looked up at Night Eye. I'll be the one to take down Ghost Rider. Night Eye sighed. I suppose it was my fault for getting my hopes up. You really think you can beat him in your condition? Night Eye asked. All Might looked at him in the eyes, and Night Eye stumbled back. I have to. Night Eye quickly regained his composure and glared at his hero before looking away. Fine. In that case, I will have to keep an eye on this. Izuku, don't take this as me accepting your decision, but rather me acknowledging that I have no say in this. Goodbye, Toshinori. We will be seeing each other again soon. With that, Night Eye left, All Might watching him go until he was out of sight. All Might slammed the door closed and fell to the floor, his heart beating fast. Ghost Rider, I'm sorry. Next time, I will catch you. I can't afford to fail. Meanwhile, with Izuku and Mizu, I would like Kota and Eri to have ... play dates, I guess you could call them, Mizu said. Izuku looked down at the table with a solemn expression. Is there something wrong with that? Mizu asked. I will. Eri is ... not the safest to be around, Izuku said. Mizu raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? She seems fine to me. Izuku sighed. He looked long and hard at Mizu for a few seconds before responding. I guess the simplest way to explain it is by telling you the whole story. You don't mind if it's a bit long, do you? Mizu shook her head. Not at all. Please, go on. Izuku took a breath before letting it out and starting his story. Do you remember my first appearance? Mizu nodded. Yes, when you destroyed the Yakuza. Izuku gave a sad smile at the somewhat bittersweet memory. Yeah, she was the reason for that. They were planning on making a quirk erasing bullet, using her blood. Mizu said nothing, but her face twisted to show her disgust at the idea of using a little girl's blood to hurt people. But that's not all. Izuku continued. In order to collect the most amount of blood in the quickest way possible, their leader Overhaul used his quirk to ... take her apart and put her back together. What do you mean take her apart and put her back together? Mizu asked. She expected something traumatic, but this ... this was on a whole other level. I mean, he would use his quirk to rip apart her body until it was nothing but a blood splatter against the wall, then putting her back together so he could do it again. Izuku explained through clenched teeth. He basically killed her over and over and over again so he could make money selling the quirk, erasing bullets to the villains and an antidote to the heroes. Never in her life had Mizu heard something that atrocious. It would have been horrifying enough to hear that something like that happened to adult, but to think that all this happened to a child. It made Mizu want to throw up her lunch. After I killed them all, I took in, Izuku said, continuing his story. I basically had no choice. She seemed to distrust basically everyone else. Not that I can blame her. But after I took her in, I started noticing that she had some issues. Well, after all she went through, that's to be expected, Mizu said. I guess. Izuku shrugged. Anyway, Yuri's quirk is called Rewind. It allows her to rewind a person's biological clock in any way she sees fit at alarming speeds with a single touch. She can turn you into a child or a monkey or just make you stop existing altogether. Mizu's eyes went wide. That's a powerful quirk. Izuku frowned. Yes, too powerful. When it first emerged, she didn't know how to control it and accidentally killed her father. Her mother gave her up to overhaul and rest, you know. That poor girl, Mizu thought to herself. What a coward of a mother she had. Mizu could never imagine giving up her own child. No matter how dangerous his quirk was, overhaul convinced her that she was a monster. Izuku continued. That her quirk was a curse. I managed to convince her otherwise, but due to certain similarities we share, if my own self-esteem starts to decline, then so does hers. I also noticed later on that she seems rather unfazed by death. Overall, she probably has a lot of mental illnesses, and while I have been training her to control her quirk, it can still go out of control from time to time. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand that being around her is dangerous. Her quirk doesn't work on me, so I'm fine. But I need to ask you this. Now that you know all this, do you still want her and Koda to have these play dates? This was a difficult question. She knew Izuku was right. That quirk of hers was very, very dangerous. But at the same time, she didn't want to say no, because if she did, that would basically be turning away two children in need. You said that her quirk was touch-based, right? Mizu asked. Oh yeah. Izuku perked up. An easy way to tell if she's using her quirk is the bright green glow that surrounds her when it becomes active. And you've been teaching her how to use her quirk so she doesn't have any more incidents, right? Mizu asked. Izuku nodded. Yeah, she's only lost control of it once after I started teaching her. We've been making good progress. She might even be able to safely use her quirk on people in a month or two. So what are the chances of anything disastrous happening? Mizu inquired. Low, very low, Izuku answered. Mizu went over the possibilities in her head. After a few minutes of thinking, she had finally made up her mind. Yes, she answered before giving a polite bow. I still want to go through with it. I think both Koda and Eri could benefit greatly from having a friend their age. Koda's always been a little bit more on the unpopular side, and from what you told me, I doubt Eri has even seen someone her age before Koda. I understand what you're saying about there being a potential danger, but she's still just a little girl, one that's been through a lot. And as a former hero, I can't turn away someone in need. So please let Eri and Koda play together from time to time. Sniff. Mizu looked up to see that tears were rolling down Izuku's cheeks. I sniff, thank you, Izuku said tearfully. It means a lot to me to hear you say that. Izuku couldn't hold back the tears of joy and started sobbing into his arm. Mizu watched with a smile on her face, knowing that she made the right choice. After a few minutes, Izuku collected himself and managed to stop crying. Sorry, Izuku sniffed. It's just, Eri means a lot to me. I can tell, Mizu said. You two seem to work to make each other happy. Izuku smiled. Yeah, you know my powers let me know whenever innocent blood is spilled. It has limits. It won't work again until I've killed whoever it was that spilled the blood and it only works within a certain range. But this biggest restriction of that power is the power itself. I can only show up after innocent blood is spilled, meaning that someone needs to get hurt or die. Mizu finished. I can only imagine how hard it must be to only be able to show up after some dies. It's a hero's personal hell, and then having to kill someone afterward. That's not hard. Izuku cut her off. Sorry about cutting you off, I just didn't want you to get more upset. It's fine, Mizu assured him. But what do you mean that's not hard? I find it hard to believe someone who values human life so much would have no problems taking it. Even though Mizu did not have a problem with Ghost Rider killing people, she herself would only ever think about killing two people. And luckily for her, they were both already dead. I know that my powers change how I feel, Izuku explained. Whenever I think back to any of my targets, I find that I can't sympathize with any of them no matter how hard I try. And whenever the time comes to do my job, I feel anger but just my anger. I feel someone else's anger. Whenever someone's in trouble, I have to fight the rage to prioritize saving them over killing my target. And whenever there are other villains around, my rage makes me want to kill them too, even though I don't have to. but I can't sympathize with them either. Honestly, if I ever lost my powers I would probably be horrified with what I'm doing, but right now, killing villains is like breathing for me. That's a lot to unpack, Mizu thought to herself. Where do I even begin to ask about something like that? I have so many questions. Gah, focus Mizu. Alright, what to ask first? Mizu took a deep breath and after a few seconds, she spoke. Your quirk. You talk about it like it's ... not yours. Even back at the graveyard, you made it sound like someone gave you your quirk and like it was made for a specific purpose. Izuku sighed. He hadn't meant to start venting his problems out to this poor woman, but he couldn't deny it felt nice to have a conversation with someone who wasn't a 7-year-old. I got my powers from a outside source, Izuku said. I'm not gonna tell you from who or how, but just know that these powers aren't mine and they aren't a quirk. As for them having a purpose, you're right. My powers are meant to help me with my job as the spirit of vengeance. I'm meant to kill killers. That's my job. I agreed to it so I could help people ... save people. Suddenly the tone of Izuku's voice changed, becoming infuriated, and his eyes turned red. But I was tricked, Izuku growled. These powers aren't made for saving people, they're made for killing people. And that's not even the worst part. He took advantage of my desperation and he made me agree to a secret second deal. One with a high cost. Tears once again came sliding down Izuku's face, except this time there was no joy in them. Only anger, sadness, and regret. Mizu rolled up to him and put her hand on his back, attempting to soothe the boy. After a few minutes, the tears stopped and Mizu smiled at the boy. You cry a lot, huh? Sorry, Izuku sniffed. Mizu shook her head. It's fine. You've been through more than most adults. You have every right to cry. Izuku's eyes widened. 9 years ago, Izuku felt so useless. Kaken was bullying yet another random kid and Izuku couldn't do anything about it. He had tried to stop him, but all that resulted in was both of them getting beat up. Kaken had left some time ago, as did the other victim of his beatings. But Izuku didn't feel like moving. Maybe it was because of the crushing sense of uselessness and despair. Maybe it was the burn wounds. Either way, all Izuku felt like doing was lying on the ground and crying. Izuku. He looked up from the grass to see his sister looking at him with concerned eyes. What happened? She asked, tears shining in her eyes. Kaken, was all Izuku could say before he started sobbing again. Fortunately, that was all that needed to be said, as Izuku understood what he meant instantly. Ever since Bakugo got his quirk, he started acting differently, picking on other students and showing off whenever he could. It got even worse after Izuku was revealed to be quirkless. After that, Izuku became a common target for Bakugo's beatings, much to Izuku's dismay. Izuku pouted. Geez, Kaken is being such a jerk. Izuku said nothing, he just continued to cry. Izuku tried to use her quirk to lift him up, but all she could manage to do was lift him into a sitting up position. She had to take a second to recover from using her quirk that much. Afterward, she crouched and wrapped her arms around her brother. It's okay to cry, Izuku, she said. Remember what Mom said. Crying is your body getting rid of all the sadness. So cry all you need, bro. I'll wait till you're done so we can go home. Izuku hugged his sister back, and so he cried and cried until he felt better. Back to the present. Izuku smiled through his tears at the bittersweet memory. It's been a while since the last time I cried, for a long period of time. I've been trying to keep it in to stay strong for Eri. It feels good. Thank you, Izuku said. It's ... been nice to talk to someone that isn't Eri for once. Mizu smiled. It's no problem at all. And please call me Mizu. This surprised Izuku. Are you sure? Yes, Mizu said. I think it's safe to call us friends, right? Friends? Izuku didn't know what to say. After Bakugo, he never had any friends, and he had assumed after becoming a mass-murdering skeleton that he would remain friendless. So hearing her say that ... it made Izuku even happier. Izuku smiled brightly. Okay. Then, please, call me Izuku. Is that your name? Mizu asked, not sure if he was giving her a fake name or not. Izuku nodded. Yup, Izuku Midoriya. Sorry, it took me so long to introduce myself. Mizu smiled back. Sorry for not asking. Beep 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 beep. Izuku looked down at his watch. Oh, it's dinner time already. Guess we should go then. Mizu frowned. You could stay for dinner if you would like. Izuku shook his head. No, it's okay. Besides, chances are I'm gonna have to work soon anyway. It's unlikely that I can go a whole day without someone attempting to kill someone else in this city. Mizu sighed. I guess that's true. Eri, Izuku called. The two heard footsteps coming closer and closer until the two children were in sight. Time to go home, Izuku said. Eri frowned. Oh, do we have to? Izuku looked at Eri adorable pout and started to reconsider. Well, see, can't you guys stay? Koda asked, looking at Izuku hopefully. Izuku sighed. He stood no chance. Fine, we can stay a little low. Suddenly Izuku stopped and his eyes glowed a demonic red. Izuku, are you okay? Asked a concerned Mizu. Eri sighed. That means he has to work. Izuku gave Mizu an apologetic look. Sorry, this might take a while. If I don't come back in a few hours, would you mind if Eri stayed the night? Vizu gazed at her, who in return gave her a begging look. Of course not. Ochako was concerned. Normally she and Izuku would walk together, but Izuku was nowhere to be seen. She had also not given her a single call from her over the weekend. When she got to class, she found Izuku sitting there and ran up to her. "Izuka," she said, getting her attention. "I haven't seen you all weekend. You didn't walk with me to school either. Did you need some time to yourself or something?" Izuka gave her friend a warm smile. "Yeah, I'm fine now. I just needed to think about some stuff. I'm fine now." Ochako gave her friend a concerned look. "Are you sure? Do you want to talk about?" Izuku quickly shook her head. No, I'm fine. Really." This did not dispel Ochako's fear. "I'm not gonna force you to talk about it. But if you need to talk about it, don't bottle it up. I'm always ready to listen." Izuku looked at her for a moment before standing up and hugging her. "Thanks, that means a lot to me." Ochako hugged her back. "It's no problem." The two separated, and as Ochako was sitting down, Ada ran into the room. "Everyone, class is about to start. Take your seats." You're the only one not sitting down," Zero pointed out. Ada realized this and quickly got into his seat. "Damn it." Soon enough, Aizawa walked in. "Today you will be choosing a representative and vice representative." That's so normal, the class thought. They were expecting him to do something crazy with ridiculously high stakes. "Don't make too much noise," Aizawa said before crawling back into his sleeping bag. Most of the class went on about how they should be representative before Izuka spoke up. "Why not just vote?" she said. "That is an excellent idea," Ada said. "But won't we all just vote for ourselves?" Kaminari asked. "Not all of us want to be a rep," Izuka pointed out. "Someone is bound to get more than 1 point, and if there's a tie, we can just vote between the people that tie." "Once again, excellent idea, Midoriya," Ada shouted. "Does he ever stop yelling?" Izuka wondered. Paper was handed out to all the students. "I mean, obviously, it should be me," Izuka thought to herself. "I mean, I may have tripped up yesterday, but still, I'm more than capable of being class rep." Knowing Izuka, she will probably vote for herself, Ochako thought. "And sorry, Izuka, you're really smart, but you really shouldn't be class rep." Ada seems good. Bakugo didn't know who to vote for. Crap. The only person I know in here is Izuka, and she really should not be class rep. And I obviously am not fit to do it. Fuck it, that Ada guy seems smart, he can do it. Suddenly Izuka spoke. "Just so everyone knows, being class rep does not make you king or queen of the school like on TV. It basically just means you have to do a bunch of extra work and that you have slightly more authority than normal. You can't change school uniform or make it so we don't get homework or something dumb like that." "What?" yelled a portion of the class. "You mean I wouldn't be able to make the girls wear shorter skirts?" Minda cried. "You mean I would have to do like paperwork or something?" "That is correct," Momo said. "Being class rep is more of a responsibility than power. You do have some power, but it's not all that much." The class deflated at this, and some of them crossed out their answers. Izuka smirked. Now that those idiots know they would actually have to handle responsibility, they won't want to vote for themselves. "Now I have this as the bag." After all the votes were collected and the points were put on the board, Ada 15, Momo 4, Izuka 1, Aoyama 1. "What?" Izuku was shocked. But suddenly a thought occurred. What if Bakugo was right and me acting like him made me unpopular? Izuka shook off the thought. "No, he just said that to get out of fighting me. There's no truth in that. We are nothing alike. But still ... why did no one vote for me then?" Izuka pondered that question until she figured it out. "I know how great I am, but these guys don't. That must be why." And after Ada's victory yesterday, of course, they would vote for him. Damn it. Aoyama voted for himself, thinking that it would be best if the class rep was someone who shines. Many of the other students just looked at Ada and voted for him because he looked like the type of guy to want this. While some of the other students voted for him based off of how well he performed when he fought Izuka and Ochako. Ada also voted for himself because he felt he was best for the job. Momo voted for herself, and Minta, Kaminari, and Zero voted for her because they thought she was attractive. "I am honored that you all think I am worthy of such a position," Ada said. "I will do my best to live up to your expectations." Momo stood up as well and looked around the room, particularly at the perverted gazes she was getting. "I have a feeling that I didn't get those votes because of my intelligence." She sighed. "Oh well, at least I can prove myself." After that, everyone went to lunch. "Sorry for not voting for you," Ochako said. "But to be fair, you did cost us the match with Ada and Bakugo." The two were sitting alone as per usual. Izuka sighed. "Yeah, I know." Izuka looked over at Ada and sighed. "Give me a second." Izuka walked over to Ada and tapped his shoulder. "Midoriya," Ada said, slightly shocked that she approached him. "Is there something you wanted?" Izuka nodded. "Can we talk somewhere else?" Ada nodded, and the two walked into the hallway. Izuku breathed in deeply. "I wanted to apologize for judging you so quickly, and for being such an ass." "Language," Ada yelled. "And as I said, there is no need for an apology. As I said, it was my behavior that caused you to act as you did." Yeah, but I was still kind of a dick about it, Izuku said. Look, just accept my apology and let's say we're cool. I suppose I could do that, Ida said, choosing to ignore her cursing again. Izuku smiled. See, me and Bakugo are nothing alike. Good thing I nipped that in the bud. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Izuku sighed. Another day, another killing spree. Izuku would have said that it had gotten boring after doing it so much, but in truth, it was never entertaining. The person whose blood was spilled had survived and ran away, so it was just Izuku and the remains of the 3 villains that had been here in an abandoned warehouse. You know, why is it villains always pick an abandoned warehouse or alleyway to commit their crimes in? Izuku wondered. Why don't heroes just hang around these areas? Small-time crime would be almost non-existent. Boom. FWOOSH. Before Izuku even knew what was happening, he was thrown off his bike and through the skies of the city. Wait, what? Izuku thought to himself. What the heck happened? Wait, there's only one person who's that strong and that fast. Crash. Before Izuku could finish that thought, he hit the street. Oh, Izuku said. He slowly got up and looked around. It looked like he got thrown across the city. There were no people on the sidewalks, no cars on the streets, and no sounds coming from anyone or anything other than him and some helicopters in the air. It was as if this part of the city was completely abandoned or evacuated. Boom. Izuku saw something crash down in front of him, and from the cloud of dust emerged All Might. The hero wasted no time talking and charged at Izuku. Thinking fast, Izuku ducked, avoiding the hero's lunge. Isn't this a bit much? Suddenly attacking me, evacuating a part of the city. This isn't like you, All Might. All Might ran forward and attempted to punch him, but Izuku caught it and held back All Might's punch. All Might tried to punch him with his other arm, but Izuku caught that as well. Gah! Izuku grunted as he was being pushed back. All Might was stronger than him. I'm sorry, but you've left us no choice, All Might said as he pushed Izuku back even more. Drastic times call for drastic measures. All Might, Izuku said. Did you evacuate everyone? There are no civilians, no heroes, no one but just us. Of course, All Might said. Suddenly Izuku's emerald flames began to glow brighter. Good. Kaboom. The entire street was engulfed in flames as the buildings turned to rubble from the massive explosion Izuku unleashed. When the explosion died down, Izuku found himself standing alone in a cloud of dust and a pile of rubble inside a massive crater. He's not down. Izuku summoned his bike. He's not going to stop and talk, probably because of the fact that his time is running out. I need to get out of here now while the cloud is hiding me. Izuku sped away on his bike out of the cloud. As Izuku was attempting to escape, the earth rose up, forming a massive wall. What? Izuku thought in shock. Pixie Bob. She must be responsible for this. I bet she's watching in one of those helicopters. Damn it, if I try to ride up this, All Might will catch me in no time. Izuku heard something rushing toward him and he pulled out his shotgun. Just as All Might came into sight, Izuku blasted him with full power. Boom. All Might was launched back into the cloud. Damn it, I'm going to have to fight my way out of this. Sorry, All Might, but I can't hold back. Boom, 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 boom. Izuku repeatedly shot at where All Might was in order to keep the hero at bay, causing huge explosions to litter the battlefield. Boom, 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 boom. After many shots, Izuku stopped. Did I get him? A few moments passed, and then Izuku saw a shadow in the smoke getting bigger and bigger, presumably coming at him. Izuku let off another shot, revealing that it wasn't All Might but a piece of rubble. Damn it, where did he? Crash. Suddenly All Might stomped on him from above. JHHH. Detroit smash. Boom. All Might landed a powerful blow on Izuku, causing the wind to kick up and a tornado of dirt and rubble to form. Just as All Might was about to punch him again, he was rammed by Izuku's motorcycle. Izuku's motorcycle kept pushing All Might until the hero managed to sink his feet into the ground and push back against the bike. All Might grabbed the handlebars of the flaming bike, burning his hands before throwing it as far as he could. All Might spat out blood. Damn it, I need to stay close to him otherwise. Boom, 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 boom. Another barrage of blast from Izuku's shotgun left another cloud of smoke, ash, and dust. Izuku stopped his attack. He had no idea how much All Might could take, but he definitely didn't want to overdo it. The cloud dispersed, revealing All Might still standing, covered in wounds. I need to get that gun away from him, All Might thought to himself. His long-range advantage is too much. Izuku aimed his shotgun at All Might, and the hero knew he had to think fast. All Might grabbed a chunk of rubble next to him, and as Izuku pulled the trigger, All Might threw the chunk at the bullet, causing it to explode. All Might ran at Izuku, picking up large chunks of rubble. Izuku fired his shotgun as fast as he could, but All Might just threw more rubble, making it so he couldn't get a direct shot. Before Izuku could switch tactics, All Might was already upon him and ripped the weapon from his hand before punching him across the crater. All Might looked at the shotgun. Ghost Rider could control this even if it wasn't in his hands, so he couldn't just throw it aside. He needed to destroy it. All Might grabbed both ends of the gun and pulled. He could feel the weapon resist his strength. Whatever it was made of, it was much stronger than any normal metal. All Might pulled with all his strength and felt the weapon begin to bend. JHHH. With that scream, the weapon snapped in two. Suddenly the weapon burst into flames and turned to ash in the hero's hands. What on earth was that made of? GAH. All Might cried as he felt a burning pain in his side. He looked down to see a large gash in his side. He heard the sound of a chain rattling and managed to jump out of the way of Izuku's chain attack. He looked to see Izuku swinging his chain. Izuku sent the chain directly at All Might, who dodged it once more. All Might charged at Izuku once more, but Izuku maneuvered the chain to block him. Suddenly All Might was struck in the back by the part of the chain Izuku he had dodged earlier. He can control the chain. As he tried to ignore the pain from the burning gashes on his body, suddenly the chain turned in midair, heading right for All Might, who dodged once more. All Might dodged a few more attacks before he found himself surrounded by the seemingly magic floating, infinitely expanding chain. Izuku didn't give the hero a chance to find a way out as he signaled the chain to wrap around the hero, trapping him. All Might struggled to get out, but it was to no avail. Izuku summoned his bike and had it go right in front of All Might before turning to the side. Izuku held out his hand. His fireballs may not be as powerful as his shotgun, but they would work for what he had planned. Izuku aimed and shot a fireball right at the bike, and then everything turned white. KABOOM. A massive explosion, bigger than any that had come before, knocking back even the helicopters far above as the pilots tried to gain back control and avoid the mushroom cloud that had erupted. After a few minutes, the explosion died down, leaving a cloud of dust and ash that had once been part of the city. For about 5 minutes the cloud dispersed a little, revealing Izuku on the ground, still in his Ghost Rider form. His bones were covered in cracks, and the cracks on his skull were leaking green flames. Slowly Izuku forced himself up, pain shooting through his body as he did so, his brain telling him to stay down. Izuku looked at the dust cloud where All Might had been a few minutes ago. Please tell me I got him. Please tell me he's down. The cloud dispersed, revealing All Might, still standing, if only barely. His costume was in tatters. His body was covered in cuts, gashes, burns, and bruises. His legs were shaking and his body was emitting steam. Damn it, I made a promise, All Might said. I promised that I would take you down and save you and that girl from whatever fate had befallen you too. And I won't go down until that promise is fulfilled. All Might struck his heroic pose, his signature smile still on his face as blood leaked from his mouth. I'm sorry that it had to come to this, but this is the only way to stop you. So sit tight and know that soon you'll be able to rest and that the girl will be safe. Why? Because I am here. Izuku was in awe. Even with all those wounds, even after a blast like that, he was still standing tall and smiling. This was the dread every villain faced. This was the symbol of peace. This was All Might. All Might, Izuku thought to himself. You really are amazing. As long as your spirit is strong, then you won't ever go down. Izuku shook his head. Now was not the time for fanboying. He really won't stay down no matter what. At this rate, this will end with either me getting captured or All Might dying. Or both. I can't let that happen, but what can I do? Attacking him won't make this situation better, and All Might's will is too strong. Suddenly he got an idea. His will. If attacking his body won't work, then I need to attack his spirit ... and I know just how to do it. He looked at All Might and cringed internally at what he was about to do. I'm sorry, All Might, but this is for both our sakes. There was a pause as All Might prepared to attack when suddenly Izuku spoke. Save us? He said. You mean like you saved Izuku? All Might froze. Well, what? I can see your sins. All Might, Izuku said, walking closer to the hero. I know what you've done. You say I need to be stopped because I'm a killer. Hypocrite. You killed someone. A child. A boy who just wanted to be like you. All Might stuttered as he started to shrink. And no, I didn't mean to. You were his hero. Izuku continued, getting right up in the hero's face. He looked up to you more than anyone in the world. And what did you do? You crushed his dream. Cause him to kill himself. You killed him. All Might tried to respond, but the words were caught in his throat as Ghost Rider stared him down. His body had almost completely reverted back to his true form. And what's worse, if he was alive, he could have helped his mother escape that fire. But because of you, Izuku Midoriya was all alone when that fire came. She died because of you. And because of you, Izuku Midoriya is all alone. All Might hung his head in shame as his true form was now fully exposed for all the world to see. All the doubts that kept him up at night were now being thrown in his face. But you want to why I never came for you, Izuku said. Because everything I just said was a lie. All Might looked back up at him with a surprised look. What? Izuku's death was not your fault, Izuku said. Izuku was killed by his own bad luck and the world around him. There is no single person that can take the blame for years of bullying and being told his dream was impossible. He never blamed you. Not for a second. Whack. Before All Might could respond, Izuku backhanded him onto the ground, finally knocking him out. I did it. I beat All Might. Izuku collapsed on the ground, exhausted. He could feel himself passing out. He had no motorcycle and his chain was most likely destroyed, meaning he couldn't summon a portal. As Izuku was halfway between passing out and thinking of a way to escape, he saw a black feather fly in front of him. and then a swarm of black feathers started circling him, surrounding him entirely, and after a few seconds, they dispersed, revealing that he was home with Hawks right in front of him. "Hey," Hawks said. "You're welcome." Izuku smiled. "Thanks," and then he passed out. Okay, sadly the chapter is over. And if you enjoyed the video, just leave a like and subscribe with post notification, so when the next chapter is ready, you will be notified. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.